Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 849 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And today we're seeing Ukraine launching a massive drone attack. South Korea is preparing for war, and also Israel is preparing to invade Lebanon. And it's good to see you all once again.
And, of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, the escalations on the Korean Peninsula, and also what appears to be an imminent invasion by Israel into the area of Southern Lebanon. We have an insane amount of breaking news tonight, and while those are going to be some of the major three topics or three spheres of news that we're covering tonight, there is a lot of breaking news in between from just place to place. Overnight, Ukraine launched another massive drone attack on southern Russia, comprised of over 100 drones, crippling and destroying massive critical infrastructure sites of the Russian Federation, from oil refineries to airfields. The scene was so chaotic that the Russian Federation ended up shooting down one of their own helicopters involved in the air defense operation in a major friendly fire incident. At the exact same time, we were able to get news from Moscow that they are conducting more raids for cannon fodder, and it appears that they are starting mass arrests to specifically press people into military service. We were also able to get news that Ukrainian forces are doing exceedingly well on the Vovchansk front, continuing to inflict incredibly high casualties on the Russian forces, and also slowly pushing them out of the city street by street. At the exact same time, within the area of Bakhmut and Avdiivka, we were able to see that there were very staunch defensive operations being conducted by Ukrainian forces as they continue to hold the line, and not only that, once again turn the battles in their favor. Moving on from that area and over into South Korea, or really the East Asian arena, we were able to see that the South Koreans and North Koreans are appearing to be on a never-ending path of escalation at this point. Beyond just the turballoons and the loudspeakers on the border, it now seems as though things are probably getting the tensest that we've seen in quite some while, probably for decades on the Korean Peninsula, as it does seem as though the tensions will not be relieved anytime soon, and in fact will constantly be raising, at least for the next few weeks, based off of what we're seeing right now. At the exact same time, we also got to hear that US and Chinese diplomats had their first informal talks in over 5 years on the nuclear situation within East Asia and the possibility of the Chinese using nuclear weapons against Taiwan in a military exchange. At the exact same time, in another corner of the world, in the Middle East, we were able to hear that the Israelis appear to be poised to invade the area of southern Lebanon, with the war goal of removing the Hezbollah forces from the southern region of the nation, and also restoring Lebanon to a pre-Lebanese civil war sort of a governmental situation. Although there's a lot to talk about with that, and we're not exactly sure how that would go, but nevertheless, we are getting an idea that an invasion of southern Lebanon may be imminent within the next 7 days. But we will be talking about all of this tonight. We have an insanely high amount of news, and of course, things are heating up really around the entirety of the globe. But moving us on into our major breaking news of the night, the Russians were hammered by one of the largest Ukrainian drone attacks that we have seen that has spanned the area of southern Russia. Over 100 Ukrainian long-range drones were used overnight, and it appears that many of them were able to strike their targets and cause some of the most significant damage that we have ever seen in a single mass wave drone attack by Ukrainian forces. Based off of the information that we have been able to get, we have understood that 4 Russian oil refineries have been stricken. The Russian airfield at Yeysk has also been severely damaged as well, and not only that, a Russian communications and radar site were also hit and possibly destroyed as well from the drone attacks. All of this is coming together to give us a really clear idea that these drones were able to hit a wide spread of targets throughout the area of the southern Russian Federation, and that this will most likely be setting the Russians back seriously in their oil, or their fight to maintain any kind of usable oil reserves, and also their fight to continue the conflict inside of Ukraine, considering that several military targets were also stricken overnight as well. Moving on into the area of Krasnodar, we were able to get our best video evidence so far of one of the oil refineries in Krasnodar Krai Oblast being hit. This video footage allows us to hear the sound of a Ukrainian long-range drone flying over.
The haunting sound of a lawnmower, I'm telling you.
Man, I'm telling you what, those lawnmowers are probably some of the scariest. But it's now disappearing over the horizon as we see a brand new white Lada right there.
That's an omen of things to come.
Oh, and bad things are coming. Ooh! Пидорасы беру.
Охуеть, ебать.
What happened was this. Let me move y'all to the next video, just show y'all exactly what happened. Actually, that's the Twitter post from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. Let me actually show y'all the other video where where we can actually see the impact of the drone right here. Hey.
Oh, damn.
Fun
Wow.
times. That's fun times indeed. Look at that little hit. That was a pretty strong one. From what we understand, not only was that specific refinery hit, apparently refineries were hit in Afip, Ilya, Krasnodar, and Astrakhan. A wide swath. I mean, an incredibly wide swath. The oil refinery in Astrakhan would be all the way down here, literally at the mouth of the Volga River and on the shores of the Caspian Sea. And we got to see that oil refineries were targeted all the way from there and all the way into Krasnodar itself. The strikes were serious in nature and posed a significant amount of damage once again to the Russian oil industry overnight, along with a radar station and an electronic intelligence center in the Bryansk region also being targeted and destroyed as well. This may be one of the most comprehensive Ukrainian drone strikes that has ever been seen, targeting not only critical infrastructure of the Russian Federation, but critical military sites as well simultaneously, and attempting to decapitate Russian abilities in a single mass strike. Things like this have very rarely been seen, as earlier in the year we saw that this new long-range drone attack was in its infant stages and were most likely relegated, or usually relegated, to very small surgical strikes, either on specific refineries within the Russian Federation or deep strikes almost to the Ural mountain range regions of the Russian Federation. Now we're seeing that Ukrainian drone attacks are not just a small, one-and-done kind of a attack ordeal. It is now a mass attack using over 100 drones and being able to wipe out a large amount of Russia's vital military infrastructure within specific regions of Russia, all in one fell swoop. The exact same thing was seen in the area of Yesk, as we got to see that heavy drone attacks were also occurring again on the Yesk airfield, much like we saw the other day. And look at that. That was pretty bright.
Give the Russians a little bit of light, nothing like a little eyesight to help you out.
Man, they can see how screwed they are at this point.
Illuminate the disastrous situation.
And then finally we can see the fire at the Yesk airfield. We sadly have not gotten any satellite pictures yet from Maxar to be able to get a good idea of what kind of damage has been caused, but it does look like it is going to end up being a pretty significant amount of damage, which is always a great thing to know. However, it appears that Russian air defense, which is practically non-existent within the southern area of Russia, it was largely overwhelmed last night. In fact, it looks as though they were so overwhelmed that communication between the air defense forces broke down and led to one of the most interesting friendly fire incidents of the war so far. Near to the area of the Kerch Bridge is the town of Anapa. Now, the town of Anapa is one that we've never brought up on this channel, and that's because it's a fairly small town with not really that much significance, at least for the war effort. However, it does have a little bit of significance. You see, the thing is that there is an international airport nearby, and we have been told that apparently a small Russian helicopter team has been stationed at this airport and uses it as a forward operating base for these helicopters to then take off and conduct patrols at the mouth of the Kerch Strait to try and protect the Kerch Bridge. These helicopters took off last night once the reports of impacts were being made from drones, or the fact that drones were coming in was being reported, and began to patrol around the area from Anapa and all the way over into the area of Yakovinkove, which is just to the mouth of the Kerch Strait. This was an attempt by the Russians with the helicopters to try and create a first defensive perimeter, or a screen for the bridge's defense forces to at least give them an update or a heads up if Ukrainian naval drones were trying to make their way towards the bridge and destroy it. The Anapa air defense, on the other hand, is really detached from the small helicopter forces at Anapa International Airport and was largely seeking to defend the skies of the town, which we understand does not really have that much military significance. However, they were going to defend it hell or high water against any attack that may come. And an attack did come. A radar target popped up on their screens, and they shot it down. The problem is that it was actually the Ka-29s that had taken off from Anapa International Airport earlier on during the attacks, and they ended up shooting down one of their own helicopters, leading to all 4 service members aboard the Ka-29 to be killed. Now, we did report on this a little bit earlier today with this picture right here from Visegrad24, but we were able to get the official confirmation a little bit later on in the day because that famous Twitter post came out. Eternal flight, brothers. And a picture of the Ka-29.
No.
So it is.
Wait a minute. It's usually Fighter Bomber that says Eternal Flight Brothers, and they like play that little like cringy music behind it. But this time it's a whole different account.
Man, I'm telling you what. Dude, look at this. Look at this report. In Anapa, our air defenses shot down our own propeller. The Ka-29 was searching for BECs. One of our Panzers on a landing on the rotor, preliminary version due to a malfunction of the own foreign system. I will not voice any versions, let the counterintelligence and investigations be examined. 4 people were killed. Eternal memory to our soldiers. And the Russians here in this one little post have admitted that the Ka-29 was shot down and all 4 service members were killed in the incident, showing that Russian air defense is heavily disorganized if it even exists inside the Russian Federation. Now it's time to talk about why this failing is a critical one. The reason why we are assuming that Russian air defenses have absolutely no communication with each other is because the Anapa local air defense batteries did not have any knowledge that the helicopters from Anapa International Airport, just a few miles north of the city, had taken off and were beginning to conduct their patrols along the coastline of the Black Sea and out to the opening of the mouth of the Kerch Strait. The fact that this communication was not conducted for them to know that there were friendly air forces in the area is letting us know that the communication of air defense battery to air defense battery and equal air defense forces with ground air defense is non-existent in Russia, as this is not the first time that we've seen a mass friendly fire incident like this one, where a large amount of losses were sustained and an entire aircraft was shot down. There is still a pretty decent discussion that has been had about the A-50 mainstay that was shot down near to the village of Novosherbanovskaya way back months ago earlier on in the war. From what we believe on this channel, we actually believe that an S-300 missile system ended up shooting down the A-50 in a great form of confusion and a mass-friendly fire incident. We believe that this situation in Anapa is once again a continuation of the poor communications that Russian air defense forces are having with each other, which are beginning to lead to embarrassing losses like the loss of this Ka-29 today. And I believe Ka-29s cost somewhere around $15 to $20 million apiece. So they're not exactly a cheap helicopter to be losing. But nevertheless, it is showing us that the Russians are not doing that well. And meanwhile, in Rostov-on-Don, things are just catching on fire out of the blue. We didn't even hear about Ukrainian drones attacking Rostov-on-Don overnight, but we were able to see that a pretty significant military warehouse housing dozens of main battle tanks ended up catching on fire. We believe that some of these main battle tanks have actually been severely damaged in the fire, or maybe even destroyed. And then we got to get a second video even closer to the source of the fire right here. Check this one out. That thing be toasting. And it is once again reminding us that the Russians are just having a poor time down here in the area of southern Russia. And they're getting so paranoid about how badly things are going that they are layering and layering the Kerch Bridge barrier defenses over and over and over. Here's what they looked like on the 12th of May. Here's what they looked like on the 22nd of May. Here's what they looked like on the 1st of June. Here's what they looked like on the 11th of June. Here's what they looked like on the 21st of June, which is just today. We're seeing that they're getting out every single barge within the area of the Gulf of Azov, and they are bringing them here to the front of the bridge to try and stop it from a potential attack from Ukrainian drones. I don't know if this will ever be successful, but it is pretty funny to see that they're getting so paranoid about how badly their defenses are working in this area. They are going to build the Great Wall of barges in front of the Kerch Bridge to try and defend it from possible drone attacks. Things just aren't going well in southern Russia for the Russian Federation, and it looks as though things are not going to be improving anytime soon. But a lot of people are talking about the Russians shooting down their own Ka-29 helicopter during Ukraine's drone swarm that occurred in the early hours of the day today, and a lot of people are talking about what this means. Some people are saying that this is status quo for the Russians and just that normal kind of goofy crap that you can expect. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. Some people are saying that's going to cost someone a job. Someone's probably going to get fired. And others are saying that it might cause a little bit of a comeuppance. And others are a little bit unsure. But Matthew, what is everyone saying about this? Is everyone saying that this is good? Bad? Or are they saying that this is going to be something that the Russians will reel from? Are nuclear attacks imminent? What are people thinking, Matthew? And what are you thinking as well?
So 53% of the audience said it's fine because that's status quo for Russia. They shoot down their own aircraft all the time, and cheers. 37% said that's going to cost somebody a job, and 6% said it might cause a little bit of an issue, maybe. And on this one, I gotta say, I'm with the 52%. It is status quo. Russia shot down a lot of their own aircraft. One thing notable about this time, though, is we have the Instagram, or the, not the Instagram, but the Telegram channels coming out and saying that they actually shot it down this time. They've actually taken credit for shooting down their own helicopter. Typically, in the past, they try to make it seem like Ukraine did it, so that way they don't look like they're really, goofy and they're shooting down their own aircraft. But this time, somebody came out and made the stupid statement in Russia to say that we did it. So that's not good for them. Now they came and covered up for propaganda purposes. So I don't think it's going to cost anybody their job. It's just going to be what it is because it happens all the time. And if it costs people jobs, then the entire Russian military would be out of a job. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, this is not going to be costing anyone a job. Knowing the Russians, they're going to, probably on the military level, because while the Telegram channels are clearly stating that there was a loss, on the military level, they're going to sweep this under the rug and say nothing happened, and maybe it was a crash or something like that. Meanwhile, they're going to take the guy in charge of the air defense, and they're going to bring him into an office and go, "Did you see what happened out there?" And he's going to go, and they're going to go, No. We cannot do that again. Okay, you get the pass this time because we don't want to look like fools, but don't do it again, okay? Don't do it. And the other guy's gonna go, "Okay, I hear. Shoot first plane on the radar. Okay." And then they're gonna go, "Okay, out you go, you silly goose." Look at them go. That's what
At
the
least
Russians...
this wasn't so expensive this time. Like, it was 20 million after all, but it wasn't like, 500 million. Like yeah, it wasn't that bad, but it was still bad.
Dude, I'm telling you something. Mr. Beast was down there in Novosibirsk that day. He went, "I'm going to shoot down a $500 million command plane." Like, it's like, dude, who in the world could have ever expected that a Moskva, pretty much a flying Moskva-class cruiser in cost, would get shot down by an S-300? Who would have thunk? Like, not me.
The Russians be like, just like Mr. Beast, "Man, we don't worry about making money on the content. We're just trying to make good content. If we lose money, it's okay." That's how they justify it.
Dude, that's some Russian sat there, dude, and they said, "Oh my God, it's on the radar! Quick, shoot!" And then someone said, "Wait a minute, what if it's one of ours?" Shh. This is critical plot development. Just fire, okay? Like, they just shoot it down, okay? Like, and they're like, "Oh, okay." And then they shut the thing down. But beyond that, the friendly fire, it just keeps on rolling in. I mean, it's never going to stop, really. And it's never going to stop because the Russians are never going to coordinate well. Now, this is one thing I will say, however, is that friendly fire is existent within Western forces when we do get into conflict. Many people will remember the whole Pat Tillman thing, where Pat Tillman, famous, I believe, NFL quarterback, ended up getting killed in a friendly fire incident in Afghanistan. And a whole bunch of people will also remember that in the Gulf War, there were also friendly fire incidents as well, but they were far less reoccurring than the ones with the Russian Federation. I mean, with the Russian Federation, it's insanely common for friendly fire incidents to occur, both on the air defense level, on the ground forces level inside of Ukraine, and really on every single kind of an instance you can think of. Friendly fire has been heavily prevalent in almost all instances, and it is showing that there is a poor amount of training and a poor amount of communication that is plaguing the Russian Federation's armed forces and continuing to really hamper what they can do. But moving on from the Russian Federation's southern front and how badly it's going down there, we have to talk about how badly it's really going for them. It's going so badly. We've seen something today that is quite shocking. It almost looks like something out of a movie. The video that we were looking at was filmed in the area of the Novosibirsk market inside of Moscow. And this market is pretty much like an American mall or a Western mall, like the ones you would find in Europe in some instances. The police raided the mall, and began to round up all able-bodied men that they found in the mall. What they're going to be doing is conducting a mass arrest, and from what we understand, they are going to be pushing all of these able-bodied men that they found in the mall into military service immediately. This is the modern-day equivalent, no joke, of what the British used to do back in the late 1700s and through to the mid-1800s, which was called press ganging, where members of the armed forces, or specifically in the form of press ganging with the British, members of the Royal Navy would kidnap able-bodied men that they found near the docks and throw them onto Royal Navy warships, and they would be forced to serve a several-year-long contract with the Royal Navy. And once they served that contract, they could then decide to re-enlist or leave the Navy. But beyond that, it looks as though the Russians are starting to take that page out of the, take that idea out of the pages of history, like we're seeing right here. Also, I like this one guy.
That's wild too. They pulled up buses and everything. It's like the Russians can't even go to the mall now without worrying about like their own government pulling up and kidnapping them.
And dude, this one guy here with a Z shirt, he's probably like, shit. He's like, I thought this would get me out of the military service, but it's going to put him right in. I mean, they have the buses and everything here, and y'all can all clearly tell, just to make sure that we hit the bases. There is no mass riot going on. There is no protest. All these guys have been put into a corner by armed police, and they're gathering up any able-bodied men that they can find. This is press ganging. This is a modern-day equivalent of press ganging. I have never seen anything like this before, ever. I don't even think things like this happened in the Soviet Union. But these are the kinds of levels that the Russian Federation is going to at this point to try and get more manpower to keep the war effort going. They're not officially calling a partial or full mobilization at this point, and they probably never will. But one thing they certainly are going to do is they're going to go out there into the streets, and they're going to start rounding up people to try and put them into the military. Things are going really badly for the Russians. Things are going so badly, as a matter of fact, that they are incredibly desperate to try and stir up the pot anywhere they can in the world, possibly creating further conflicts and even further war, so that way they can use it as a diplomatic negotiating chip as far as the war in Ukraine goes. And this moves us all the way over across the world again into the Korean Peninsula. And it appears that the Russians are trying to really goad on the North Koreans into creating some sort of a very tense diplomatic standoff or a military standoff with South Korea and the United States to possibly use as diplomatic leverage against the West and the United States as far as support to the war, to the Ukrainians in the war is concerned. Based off of these statements that we've been able to get today, it does appear that the South Koreans are continuing to consider the idea of the provision of shells and equipment to the Ukrainians because of North Korean escalation. They are actually saying that they are going to match it shot for shot, shell for shell, according to the statement that we got from the Yonhap news agency today, which is a major South Korean news publication. According to the information that we have, South Korea may start supplying Ukraine with air defense systems and 155mm artillery shells. According to the direct quote from a South Korean presidential administration official, they said that there are various options for providing weapons, and our position on the latest development between Russia and North Korea depends on how Russia approaches the situation in the future. Meaning that if the Russians provide a large amount of precision-guided weapons to North Korea, South Korea is going to provide an equally large number of artillery shells and also air defense systems to Ukraine. A lot of people are probably going to look at that as an empty threat and go, who knows the South Koreans as a major military manufacturer. I mean, they're absolutely just a country that likes K-pop. They like Ramyeon, Squid Game. I mean, they're just a cool little country, right? They couldn't actually pose any kind of a major issue or to the Russian war effort. I mean, that would be absolutely insane. But then I have to introduce y'all to something that the South Koreans have as a trump card. Samsung Heavy Industries. Samsung Heavy Industries not only is a part of Samsung, which produces a lot of phones that people here in the United States, but they also produce Kanzo whoop-ass. They actually produce a decent amount of stuff. They produce vessels, they produce weapons, they produce anything and everything that you could think of, really, to be quite honest. And it's just such an interesting thing. How many industries South Korea has that is actually revolving around war production. I'm actually going to show y'all something really shocking here. And let me go to the Polish Armed Forces equipment. And then let me go pull up the South Korean Armed Forces because I want to show y'all something that will blow y'all away once y'all see it. And y'all be like, oh my god. So let's see, South Korean Armed Forces equipment. Let me go get that right here. List of equipment of the Republic of Korea Army, which is the actual name of South Korea, is the Republic of Korea. And then the North Koreans are actually called the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. But anyways, moving on from that, let me scroll down to the actual equipment. Wait a minute, was that a MAC-10? Oh, no. It was like, I was about to be like, bro, is that a MAC-10 on God? Like, I was going to be like, are they really using a MAC-10? Anyways, let me scroll down the list of Polish stuff. Okay, so here we go. This is what we're looking for. Okay, so now let me scroll down the South Korean list. Wait a minute, do they have an AK-12? Dude, I swear, dude, that looks a lot like an AK-12.
It kind of does. It's just a little bit, you know, it doesn't look quite right. It looks a little too plasticky or fake or something, but it looks like an off-brand one.
A little bit, but actually it looks like it's like a development of the AR-180. But anyways, I got that completely wrong. I was nerding out there, but we got to get on down the list. We got to get down that list. Okay, so here we go. Tanks of the South Koreans. We have the K1, which is pretty all right, but we got to get to their most advanced tank that they currently have. The K2 Black Panther. This is the South Korean main battle tank. This is their version of the Abrams. And it is made by another pretty big industry, or a pretty big company that a lot of Americans would know about. Hyundai. Pretty cool. But one thing that's really cool is that the Polish love these things, and this is actually a K2 Panther that is in Polish service. And currently, the Polish have actually teamed up with Hyundai Rotem, a South Korean major heavy industries manufacturer, and has built factories inside of Poland to churn these things out in mass, paying licensing fees to Hyundai Rotem, and of course that money eventually makes it back into South Korea's pockets as a part of their war industry. It is a beauty, I'm not going to lie. The K2 Panther does not look that bad. It looks like a little bit of a mix of a Leopard 2 plus an Abrams plus a Leclerc, all meeting in the middle and coming up with a really impressive main battle tank. But it's not
It really does. I can see the resemblance definitely of the Leopard, like up there in the turret design, but the actual like main body of the tank, it really does have the sort of like blocky shape of an Abrams. It's like you said, like they took the best parts of all those tanks and they put it into one. Like I actually like that a lot, really. It's pretty good.
It does look incredibly good. And not only that, but the South Koreans have also manufactured the K9 Thunder, which you can see is in Polish service right here. And I believe, if I'm correct, in Polish service, this is called, well, the Crab is a bit of a modification of the K9 Thunder, but they're both largely the same kind of an SPG system. Here's the K9 Thunder, and then here's a Crab for comparison. You can see that the SPGs are a very similar design, but nevertheless, those are, of course, those find their home inside of South Korea, which is a very, very interesting thing, an incredibly interesting thing. Let me see if I can find this for y'all. Also, by the way, I don't know if y'all know this, but South Korea actually does host a decent amount of Russian military equipment that's currently in their armed forces, because the Russians were poor and desperate for money, so they actually ended up selling a good bit of stuff in the late 90s to South Korea, which is actually kind of a little bit bizarre, but they still have some stuff. Anyways, let me make sure here that I'm getting this correct. I think... Wait, hang on. I think if I'm remembering correctly, and I'm trying to rake my brain to remember everything as best I can, I believe that the Rosamac... Let me see here. Let me scroll down the list. This is not just the K2 Panther and the K9 Thunder. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that they're also getting from South Korea as well. And I'm not seeing any of it on this list so far, which is a little unfortunate. So sadly, I won't be able to add any more to that. But nevertheless, South Korea is, to just try and summarize this as best I can instead of trying to rabbit hole to find the other examples I'm looking for, South Korea is a major arms manufacturer. And not only that, they have a massive amount of armored equipment and vehicles. They have, and let me make sure to get this number correct, 1,700 armored personnel carriers of the YPR 765 variety for the most part, which is a pretty high number. Not only that, they have hundreds of main battle tanks. Some of them are an older vintage, like these M48 Pattons, which are still in service with the South Korean Armed Forces, but some of them are incredibly modern, like the 260 K2 Panthers that they have, or the 484 K1A2 Panthers that they have in service. This one resembles an Abrams a lot more than the K2 Panther, but then they also have 1,000 K1 Panthers in service currently. The number of military vehicles that the South Koreans have is actually a pretty expansive list, especially for a country with such a small landmass, but we do have to remember that the economy of South Korea is pretty close to being directly on par with the Russian Federation. And let me make sure to show that to y'all as well to get that across. This is the GDP of South Korea, $1.7 trillion approximately. Canada has a GDP of $2.1 trillion. To put that into perspective of how big the South Korean economy really is. And that is compared to the Russian GDP, which before the war had reached 2.2 trillion. But we believe nowadays it's getting around to the 1.4, $1.5 trillion mark, although we haven't really been able to get a good number on that so far. But nevertheless, the South Koreans are a country to be reckoned with, at least for the Russians, on their level. And it does seem as though the South Koreans are going to start pulling a little bit of their weight to mess with the Russians, considering that they are starting to destabilize the situation in the Koreas. Not only that, we did get to hear that there will be a par-on-par response. At the exact same time, the North Korean government has made statements that if the South Koreans send equipment to Ukraine, they are going to consider that an aggressive action or an offensive action against the Russian Federation, and that the Russians will be in a defensive against South Korea, and for that reason, they will uphold their part of the defensive pact, and then end up conducting a preemptive attack against South Korea to conduct a defensive war. I don't really know how that works in North Korean logic circles. I guess it makes sense if half of your brain is made up of cholesterol, but beyond that, that is what they're currently going off of at the moment. And tensions are continuing to rise inside the Korean Peninsula because of direct Russian interference. A lot of people are saying that the South Koreans are probably going to end up sending tons of weapons to Ukraine, and they certainly have the industrial base to be able to do such a thing. Some people are saying that they will send some weapons to Ukraine, but not a massive and never-ending number of them. Others are saying that they probably won't send anything, and some people are a little bit unsure. But Matthew, what are people thinking about that? At least the South Korean position now with the war in Ukraine, and what are you thinking about it as well?
So on this question, 50% of the audience said that they will send Ukraine tons of weapons, meaning South Korea, and 39% said South Korea will send Ukraine only some weapons, and 4% said they won't send any of them. And at this point, it sounds like it's pretty much a done deal that South Korea is going to send some amount of weapons to Ukraine in the future. The question we don't know, or the answer we don't know yet, is exactly how many weapons is South Korea going to be sending. Obviously, like we've mentioned, South Korea is a major military arms manufacturer, and they definitely have tons to send, but it comes down to their willingness. And right now, it sounds like the South Korean government is waiting to see exactly how bad the North is going to act up, and also exactly how strong this new alliance is between Russia and also North Korea before they decide on the exact volume of weapons to send. So I think they're going to start off by sending some weapons, and they'll probably be pretty good ones, but it won't be a large number. But the more this escalates between Russia and North Korea, I think they're going to start sending more and more depending on what's happening. So I'm with the 39%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I believe if the Russians follow through with what they're planning on doing, let's just say their diplomatic statements are true, that they're going to be sending a large number of precision-guided weapons to North Korea, South Korea is probably going to directly respond by sending a massive amount of weapons of their own to Ukraine. So I would actually have to go with a large majority of y'all and say that they probably will end up responding par for par, and if the Russians go big, the South Koreans are going to go big in their response. This is going to create a very tense situation on the Korean Peninsula, because we do know that the North Koreans are already starting to make their wildly dangerous statements that they will try and conduct some sort of action, hostile armed action against South Korea if they do something like that. So we probably will see that the situation will become incredibly dangerous on the peninsula, and it'll probably be nigh to war, or may even turn into a conventional war if things go incredibly south and everything falls apart and it goes in the worst case scenario that we could imagine. I'm doubting that that would happen, though, to be quite honest. I think that the situation would just be incredibly tense and almost paramount to war, but it would not get to that level. But I do think that mass weapons shipments from South Korea to Ukraine may be coming in the future, and we may also see that this starts to tie in heavily into a South Korean-Polish relationship that already exists. As I was saying a moment ago, major heavy industries like Hyundai Rotem are currently building factories inside of Poland to start pumping out massive amounts of K2 Black Panthers, K9 Thunders, and a whole bunch of other wide varieties of South Korean armored personnel carriers and other kinds of advanced equipment to help build and grow a new and emerging Polish armed force. Going off of that, we may see that the Polish and South Koreans end up creating a joint defense agreement, or a joint defense industry agreement, where the South Koreans continue to produce or expand factories inside of Poland to even greater heights, not only to feed the growing Polish army, but to also feed the Ukrainian armed forces inside of Ukraine as well, and make sure that their logistics and supply chain exists within Europe and terminates within Europe instead of existing in South Korea and then terminating pretty much on the other side of the world inside of Ukraine. So I believe that we may see that this actually starts to bring the East Asian world and the European world, at least in a defensive sphere, even closer together than it has been in the past if things keep going the way they are and full-blown war doesn't begin to break out on the Korean Peninsula, which we're not entirely sure whether it would or wouldn't at the moment, but it is getting a lot closer than it has been in the past. But moving on from that, and
isn't it kind of laughable how the master grand strategist, or at least he tries to portray himself that way, Putin, he goes to North Korea to try to help out his country, which is struggling. Its economy is hurting, and also its military is in deep trouble in Ukraine. They can't win for winning. But you see this grand strategist go down there to North Korea and literally, in the midst of him trying to help his own country out, causes South Korea to start considering and most likely send a decent number of weapons to their adversary. That's absolutely a horrible backfiring for Putin on that. And he's really not a good strategist. Like, unless North Korea acts on South Korea and they start a distraction, this will be a complete failure for Putin all the way around.
I gotta say, that stupid KGB mastermind kind of a persona that he built up for decades, once he finally had to put it to use, the planning here is horrendous. I mean, it really is. I mean, like, the best thing he could have done, if I was in Putin's shoes, folks, and I had to try and find support for Russia, what I would have done is I would have said, we're going to make a defensive pact with North Korea, and we are going to provide a massive amount of food and also economical development programs to North Korea in exchange for weapons. That's what I would have done, because there wouldn't be any way that you could really piss off the South Koreans enough with that kind of a route where they would go, okay, screw you, we're going to give weapons to Ukraine, because they would be going, oh, that's concerning, you know, North Korea may become stronger, but the Russians wouldn't be directly giving them anything that would give the South Koreans a reason to go and provide weapons to Ukraine. It was such a stupid move, and I can't believe. Well, I can believe it because we've been doing this for 850 days nearly now, so I can't believe that he would be that stupid, but it is insane to watch this guy who literally spent his entire life building up this image of, I am super smart mastermind, I outsmart everyone in Western world command, and then see him go around and make stupid, idiotic blunders like this. I mean, like, these are blunders that are hot dog man level stupidity. I mean, it's insane levels of stupidity that we're watching unfold, and yet he'll sit there and keep on going with that smug talk of, I'm actually a wicked mastermind, you know, very smart guy, as he screws Russia over even further with every action he does. But speaking of...
The only way that he can turn this around for Russia and turn this into somewhat of a positive is if he can somehow convince that nutcase, Kim Jong-un, to actually do something crazy towards South Korea, and it turns into a war. That is the only scenario that could possibly in some way help Russia at this point, because now we're seeing North Korea was already giving Russia some equipment. It didn't work that well. A lot of the shells failed, and a lot of the equipment was faulty. And now that they've basically sparked South Korea to get upset and send weapons, like I said, the only way for this to turn around is for Kim Jong-un to do something to South Korea, and I'm not really sure if that's going to happen. It looks like it could be possible, but only time will tell if it's actually likely.
Okay, so I'm actually going to have to say, I don't think the North Koreans will ever do anything. I'm entirely honest, because they're economically so weak. I mean, they're smaller economically than Haiti, and spending power does say a lot about being able to get into a war. And on top of that, they don't have any viable source of food. So they don't have money, they don't have food, they really don't have a strong industrial base to work off of. Pretty much it's already been converted into a war economy for the past few decades. I think that they're in such a weak position that they probably would collapse if they tried to start a war. I mean, I believe they probably would within months of a beginning of a conflict, unless if they were literally just plugged up to a life support machine by the Chinese or the Russians. There really would be no way for them to do much. And let me prove that by showing you all the list of equipment that the North Koreans still have in service. So let's move through the pistols. First, we have the Makarov, which I'm not going to lie, that's not that bad. I have one. They're not bad. But then they have this thing, which is a World War II era pistol called the TT Makarov. Well, actually, the Tokarev, sorry. But these things are damn awful. They also have a copy of the CZ-75. They couldn't make real ones, so they had to make copies of them. They also have the Baby Browning, which I just don't know why. It shoots a 25 ACP round, which I just don't know.
What the hell's a 25 ACP?
Oh, buddy. I wish
Is that like smaller than a 22?
Hang on, let me go 25 ACP size. Let me go see if I can show you a picture of the size of a 25 ACP round. So here we go. Here's the comparisons. So this is a 44 Magnum on the right. That's a 22 long rifle. That's a 25 auto, just right next to 22 long rifle.
Man, that's the piss off round. That's the one you shoot if you want to piss somebody off and just have them come back at you harder. That's the one you use.
Yeah, I mean it's so freaking stupid. I mean, like, I could get it maybe if it was a 32 ACP, but it's 32 ACP, to be quite honest with everyone, is not that bad of a round. I mean, it's a very small one, sure, but it's not bad. But 25 auto, like that, I mean, come on, like that can't even do anything. And have you seen how big a Baby Browning is? Let me just type in Baby Browning pistol. That's how big it is. It's not even like a pocket pistol. It's like a mini pistol.
Man, that is crazy. And who issued that? Who got it?
North Korea issues this to snipers.
To snipers. Man, they might as well just go ahead and hang it up. If it's like done with the sniper rifle, like you're finished. Like you're not defending yourself with that. And
so then moving on from that, they have the PPSH-41, hero of World War II, by the way. So it's a World War II vintage submachine gun that they have still in service. The PPS-43, the literal tube. This is a pipe gun from Fallout 4. Like, there's no other way that you can put that. And then they have the Klob from the Czech Republic. And I don't even know who uses that. Like, let's see. Used by Spies. So, not really anyone. So, then they have the Type 98, which is, I believe, the Bison, the North Korean version of the Bison with the helical magazine. Really weird. And the PBS-1 suppressor as well. Really bizarre. And then they also have a couple of Sterling submachine guns from the UK. Those are about late 1940s, early 1950s vintage.
Man, they got the museum collection coming out here.
Then, to top it all off, they have the KS-23.
Oh, man, that's like a throwaway gun right there, like the criminals might use or something.
So I'll explain what this is really quickly. This shotgun only exists because of a major factory error in the Soviet Union. They manufactured, I believe it was 20mm anti-aircraft barrels, and all of them ended up coming out massively defective and were not going to be able to be used for anti-aircraft guns. So what the Soviet Union did, I think it's actually 23mm because these are the barrels of Gush guns that they used, but what the Soviet Union did is they went, shit. Let's turn it into shotgun. So the barrel is actually that of an anti-aircraft gun. No joke, the barrel is that. And then they just built a shotgun around it to make it usable. The Russians still use this for the police, and they'll load up these giant rubber balls, and they will pretty much give you a concussion or crush your head in with these things in riot control.
Man, that's something else right here. Like, this gun right here is a disgrace. Like, the whole thing, it looks like a parts bin gun, like you said, like, just pieced together the best they could. And that's horrific right there. Terrible.
Then, of course, they have the Type 98, which is kind of like an AK platform, although it looks really kind of weird when you look at it up close. Then they have the SKS. They have a whole bunch of AKs that are, fairly standard. They also tried to make a bullpup, and while some forces use this, we haven't seen this in common use too much, and it is horrendous looking. I mean, that thing is incredibly bad looking. They also have a rip-off M16, the Norinco CQ, but we haven't seen that in use a lot. They also have a couple of stolen K2s and M16s. Then as their snipers, they have the Mosin Nagant, once again, World War II legend. They also have Dragunovs, which, they're not that bad, but they're not great either. And then they also have their version of the Zastava M76, which is, I believe, called in Korean service the Jokyok Bukchong Type 76. They also have a wide variety of vintage machine guns, including the Type 73, pictured here. This one's actually wildly common in North Korean service. Then moving on into past everything else and into the tanks. They have loads of T-55s. Many of y'all have seen these as the Russians' last-ditch effort in Ukraine, but that would probably be the bulwark of the North Korean tank forces if they went to war. They also have that Chonma Ho, because sometimes you just got to get that Chonma up on that Ho. They also got the Pokpung Ho, the Songun 915. They also have a whole bunch of PT-76s, which are absolutely terrible. Then they have a wide variety of beautiful armor personnel carriers. The Type 63. They then have the VTT 323. This one actually has an MLRS mounted to the back, just in case the infantry need a quick little rocket artillery support miles away from where the APC would be operating. Wonderful stuff. They also have... Let me see if I can pick out another good one. Oh, actually, sorry, we're moving on from that. We're now moving into their vehicles, which are...
They got the Sino-Truck Ho-Wo. Do you see that? The Ho-Wo.
Bro, they got that Ho-Wo out here. Whoa, Ho-Wo! Dude, I can see why it's called the Ho-Wo. Dude, I'd be going, whoa. If I saw this thing, I'd be going, whoa, ho! But anyways, that thing is pretty bad looking. Let's see, what the hell is this? Oh, that's that, anyways, we know what that
clunker they love to pull out all the time to threaten people with.
Look, we're going to kill everyone. And then they have a whole bunch of older self-propelled guns, like this thing, which is a Peon. It's the North Korean version of a Peon. Also, I love the rip-off personal armor system ground troop helmets that they put on these guys for this parade. Love it. Loving the vibes. But let's see here. Let me see if I can find y'all their MLRSs. Yes, the BM-11, also called the Grad by many. This is one of their most common MLRS systems. They also have, let's see here. Well, I be damned, y'all. Come on. Give us some pictures. Let's see. Oh, yeah, they have the BM-24 pictured here. World War II vintage.
Oh, man, that's rough.
Yeah, pretty freaking rough. And let's see, what else do they have? They have the Hwasong. And then they also have the Toxa, but no real good pictures exist of those. Anti-aircraft weapons, they have some man-pads, but we believe that those are in low numbers. They also have a whole bunch of pretty much like different versions of vintage anti-aircraft guns and some Gush guns in massive numbers as well. But y'all can kind of get the idea they just ain't doing well. And the Air Force is as bad. The most modern aircraft that the North Koreans have in their Air Force are MiG-29s, and they're some of the first iterations ever put into service. And they're pretty bad off. So in general, I would say that the North Korean armed forces is in no condition to launch a conventional war against South Korea. I have a feeling that the North Korean government understands that, and they know that if a war did begin, it would go so badly, there would be no point, because not even Papa Russia could come in and save them at that point. They would pretty much end up collapsing or end up in nuclear hellfire, one or the other, and that's a lose-lose for them. But with that,
do you think though that maybe because North Korea brainwashes their people so badly and they're so inundated with propaganda and basically told that the entire world's against you and you're living your whole life simply to get ready to fight the great war that may be coming up, and also they're hungry as well, and this may sound kind of a little bit silly, but honestly, in my opinion, I think them being hungry like that and also being desperate might make them more apt to fight than maybe South Koreans, because South Koreans have lived somewhat of a cushy Western lifestyle, and meanwhile the North Koreans are living a very rough and hardcore lifestyle, which puts them in a different sort of category of sort of willing to do anything necessary to basically get out of that situation and also do what they're told. So what do you think, Enforcer? Do you think the North Koreans are more apt to fight than the South Koreans, or would that not play into it?
Man, you said they were hungry like there's some kind of a boxer. You're like, they're hungry. They might fight harder. It's
Man,
like
they are. They're hungry in many ways, more than one.
I would say, to be honest, I don't think they would pose that much resistance. Let me go really quickly to the South Korean Air Force, one second, because that really does matter. Because we have to remember that they have no modern air defense systems like we just showed. Like, none at all. Not even S-300s or anything like that. So air defense is non-existent for North Korea. So we have to remember that at the beginning of every war, it's going to be an air war. North Korea is going to launch missiles into South Korea. Of course, that is an extension of the air war. And their air force is going to try and conduct some sort of offensive actions on a strategic level against South Korea. So then that brings us to, what are they going up against on the other side of the border? It's not a good picture. South Korea has 80 F-5s, which, you know, they're all right. But then they have 59 F-15Es. which spells doom for really the entire North Korean Air Force just with the F-15s. They then have an additional 160 F-16 Fighting Falcons, another 40 F-35 Lightnings, 60 F-A-50 Fighting Eagles, which is actually an indigenous South Korean design, which is actually really pretty looking. I actually like it. It's like a smaller F-16.
It looks pretty decent. It looks like a trainer plane.
It kind of is, but it is a light combat aircraft as well, so if they needed to, those could be pushed into military, well, actual, like, I guess you could say frontline service. Then they also have 4 AWACS, which are the E-7P size. Those are the pretty modern and more common AWACS than the E-3 Sentry of the past. They also have some Dassault Falcons, which are for reconnaissance, and they also have some Hawker 800s, but of course those aren't going to be frontline. They also have 4 in-air refueling tankers in the form of refitted Airbus A330s, which I think is incredibly cool that those are in-air refueling tankers. I really love the A330. But they also have a whole bunch of transport aircraft. Well, not really that much of a number. They have a wide variety of them, but not really a lot. And also, they have a 747 as their Air Force One, so they're kind of like America in that instance. They also have a pretty light amount of helicopters, not really that many. That's more so for the Army than the Air Force in South Korea. And then they also have a wide variety of trainer aircraft, like the KT-1 Wongbee, pictured here, which is just like a T-38 Texan. But beyond that, the South Korean Air Force is an incredibly competent and potent one, and considering that the North Koreans don't have any air defense, you could already get a pretty good idea that the South Koreans would just dominate in the skies over North Korea, probably wipe out most of North Korea's fighting abilities before the ground army even engaged them, and by that point, the ground forces of North Korea would probably be so demoralized, it would pretty much be a repeat on the Korean Peninsula of the Gulf War that happened with Iraq, where forces just end up surrendering by the time they actually run into American ground forces because they've been defeated pretty much from the skies already, and then the army was there pretty much just to sweep up. But that's what I would assume. I don't think it would go that well for them, and I don't think they would be that encouraged to fight. And also, a starved populace is already a pretty demoralized populace. And while they've been indoctrinated their entire lives, for sure, and they probably definitely are a very fanatical people, I just feel like that wouldn't really translate over. Kind of like how the Fedayeen, which was the guys who wore the well, not the Death Star, the Darth Vader helmets in the Gulf War, they ended up surrendering and fleeing their positions the quickest. Although they did hold a little bit of a stiff resistance in some instances and then fought some guerrilla conflicts, they never really fought conventional battles all that much in the Gulf War. So I would have to say they probably would end up being a pretty similar repeat to the Gulf War, at least in my opinion, with how the conventional fighting would go. Nuclear is a whole other story, though. Of course, that would be like any other nuclear exchange. It would pretty much be a lose-lose for everyone. But I hope we address that well, because we still have a lot to go, and we have to move over to China, because we were able to hear that U.S.-Chinese diplomats had some of the first informal nuclear talks ever in 5 years. And according to what we heard about the overview of what was stated, the United States expressed concern that the Chinese would threaten to use nuclear weapons if they were defeated in a conventional Taiwanese conflict. However, the Chinese representatives, or the Chinese delegation, said that they were so confident in the victory of their ground forces without the use of nuclear warheads that they would never threaten the use of them. Which doesn't really sound that good. It sounds as though if they were to lose, they probably would start to threaten the use of them. And they would say that it's an extension of their of defense of their territorial integrity. But pretty interesting statements to hear. And once again, showing that the Chinese really aren't removing the idea of nuclear weapons usage off the table with Taiwan. Once again, making that situation just a little bit more uncertain. But a lot of people have been talking about China and Russia recently mentioning using nuclear weapons in potential conflicts or potential down-the-road situations. And a lot of people are wondering if the next major conflict may involve nuclear weapons. And a lot of people appear to be all over the page on this one. Some people are saying that it's possible and not likely. Some people are saying that it's really possible. Some people are saying that they'll never be used. And some people are undecided. It seems like everyone has an interesting input on this idea. But Matthew, what are people saying about this, about the possible usage of nuclear weapons in future conflicts? And what are you thinking about it as well?
So 39% of the audience said yes, probably tactical nuclear usage will be possible or probably likely in the next major war, while 37% said it's possible but really unlikely in reality, and 19% said no, nukes will never be used in war just because people are talking about it. And on this one, this is a question that some people might feel hesitant to say is probably likely because it somewhat sounds like fear mongering. Because a lot of people are always saying, oh, nukes are going to fly like in the next war. They're about to happen now. It's about to happen tomorrow. It's about to happen yesterday. People are always saying nukes are going to fly. But the question here is, would the tensions bring up so badly pretty much everywhere around the world right now, and with countries actually realistically talking about potentially using them? Russia talks about it all the time. That's basically the only defense they have left to talk about is their nuclear arsenal. And now even China, which has a decently large military, talking about the possibility of using nukes if they were to lose in Taiwan. That's quite alarming to hear. But would a country actually go as far as to use a nuclear weapon like a normal bomb and drop it on someone? I don't know. It's possible, but in my opinion, it's probably unlikely. So I'm with the 36%, but we should definitely not rule it out because it's certainly on the table. And this will be if there's a major war that breaks out in the future, which there probably will be in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe earlier than that. We'll have to see if that actually turns out to be true. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, I believe that tactical nuclear weapons usage would be possible, but probably unlikely, considering that tactical nuclear weapons still carry the same dangers then as they do now. I would say that people would, of course, be heavily reluctant about their usage, but still, it is not ever an impossibility. It's just a high uncertainty, at least in my opinion. But with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we're now going to be moving on from the area of East Asia and on into the area of the Middle East, as we were able to hear that things will probably be brewing up and becoming incredibly tense, if not fever pitch, in between Israel and Lebanon here within this next week. According to information that we have, it does seem as though Israel and Lebanon may be on a path to war, and a full-scale war in between Israel and Hezbollah is looming on the horizon, and several countries have already been preparing evacuation plans for their citizens who are currently inside of Lebanon. According to additional information that we had today as well, it does look like this will be a pretty high certainty, as rumors are beginning to swirl of an Israeli offensive inside Lebanon to deter Hezbollah's ongoing aggression by the 24th of June, although we take timetables like this posted on Twitter as being wildly ambiguous and very uncertain. We did, however, see statements on Twitter by Israeli government officials today making it incredibly clear that armed action and armed intervention within southern Lebanon may be incredibly possible. It may be highly likely at this point, to be quite honest, and we may see that will be happening within this next week. If it does, of course, y'all can count on us to be here pretty much reporting within hour one of the invasion of Lebanon, if it does happen, but it does seem as though a war may be kicking off inside of the Middle East.
And also just another sign as well that things could be kicking off there between Israel and Lebanon, and specifically Israel going after the Hezbollah forces in Lebanon, is Kuwait has told people to get out of the country in Lebanon as soon as possible, to leave the country immediately. And also Canada is preparing a major potential evacuation operation to get their citizens out of Lebanon in case something goes down. So those are also more indications that something's going to happen.
And that is certainly true as well. And thank you for adding in that little extra bit of context, because I tried to condense this segment because we're already an hour and 10 minutes in, and we still have not even gotten to anything going on inside of Ukraine, and we still have a lot of news to cover there. But with that, it's now time for us to move on out of our Middle East segment and into Europe, where we were able to hear that the Netherlands and another anonymous country will both be providing a Patriot system each, meaning that 2 Patriot systems will be making it their way into Ukraine, which is incredibly good to hear. And with that, we're now going to be moving on into the actual Ukraine war news from the front lines of the battlefields that are still ongoing at this moment. And moving on into our location unknowns, we were able to see that soldiers from the 10th Operational Corps of the Ukrainian Ground Forces were conducting some trench clearing training behind the lines within western Ukraine. Really cool to see. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see a Ukrainian drone evacuating another wounded drone from the front lines, which was pretty funny. Here's the clip. Just a little salvage operation going on. But with that, we're now moving on into our last bit of location unknowns, where we got to see the Russian casualty report, and it was fairly high. Oh!
10 Bobcats. I'd love to see it.
Man, I'm telling you what, we love to see it, 10 Bobcat skid steers have been completely destroyed, along with 1,060 Russian soldiers being wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 35 armored personnel carriers being destroyed, 47 supply trucks, 14 main battle tanks, finally taking the number of destroyed tanks over 8,000, 54 artillery pieces, 1 drone, and 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems. It does seem as though things are going incredibly well for the Ukrainian defensive forces, and it looks as though that they're poised to continue to really give the Russians a run for their money, or really run them for their money. But with that, it's now time for us to move on into the Vovchansk front. But before we do, I want to make sure that we address a couple of questions, because we've gone an entire hour and 10 minutes without having a single question segment. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so it's now time for our first Super Chat segment. And the first one here is going to go to Jonathan Mall, who puts in a $50 donation. Very big support. And thank you very much, Jonathan, for the first ever support on the channel in a very big way. We appreciate it. And of course, that goes to help keep the channel running. And Jonathan did not leave a comment, sadly. Nothing to address, but huge shout out to Jonathan for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to say, massive thanks to you for that incredible support, Jonathan. That was your first. I'm turning into Mike Tyson over here.
Mike Tyson.
Man, the pigeons, they're gonna kiss. But beyond that, that was your first super chat to the channel ever in its entire history. And I got to thank you so much for throwing it in tonight and massively supporting this channel, because it is folks like you who help to make our channel possible. If it wasn't for folks like you who really enjoyed this to the point that you found it worthwhile to support, we wouldn't be able to be here on air tonight. We wouldn't be able to be here on air for the hundreds of thousands of people who watch this channel every day. It's insane to the levels that this channel has gotten to, thanks to all of y'all. We have been able to hit 200,000 views on the video that was put out today. It is just a few thousand views away. It's at 193,000 right now, and it is still rapidly climbing. It's insane to see this kind of stuff. And what's even crazier is that it kind of just falls into the background noise at this point on this channel, because almost every single video we're making these days is getting 200 to 300,000 views each. It's just insane. And I cannot believe that we've been able to persevere. We've been able to work so hard, and we've been able to have the backing of this entire community the entire way for 849 days now to truly be emerging as a major news channel on YouTube, not only in video form, but also in stream form as well. We are in the top 100s every single day. We, like I was showing last night, we beat Tucker Carlson in the top 100s. Today, we ended up beating another pretty large person, which many of y'all will know, Ben Shapiro. I haven't seen the Young Turks on the list. I think they fell off the top 100 because I would bring them up as well, but I think they don't even register on the scale anymore. But beyond that, we are beating people that are known around the world. Like, people know who these folks are, and we're beating them on a consistent daily basis at this point. And I've got to thank all of y'all for having our backs and supporting us each and every way, and supporting us with super chats that actually help us to financially make this channel possible, because y'all are making a new age of news possible. Y'all are helping us to be able to lay out news that doesn't have a political bias inherent in it, where it leans to the left or the right. It just goes straight down the middle, and it reports the news to y'all and lets y'all decide what y'all want to make of it, instead of trying to tell y'all what to make of it. Y'all allow us to be able to run an ad-free, sponsor-free show every single night here on YouTube. We owe everything to y'all, and I gotta say that it is massively appreciative that folks like you, Jonathan Mall, support this channel for the first time ever, because you're one of those folks who helps out in their own big way to help to continue to make our operations possible. Soon, we will be such a large channel, because we are continuously growing these days, and it doesn't seem that this growth will ever end anymore. One day, we will actually be at a point that we will be a major news channel, rivaling even the largest ones that are on the mainstream here in the United States. And we will be able to actually have such a strong sway and a say in the way that news is covered in this country, that we will be able, not just in America, hopefully, but on an international circuit, to be able to once again start moving news and its coverage into a more neutrally aligned and more informational and fact-finding sort of a mission, instead of one that is more an emotional or a psychological appeal, which is currently what we see most of the time with mainstream news. And I got to thank you so much for being a part of that and helping us to continue to make this channel possible, continuing to help it to keep on running, so that way we can make sure to keep on going out there and saying that the Lee Spring Army will never die. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, we love to keep the content original as well. We will never be deterred, as they say. But anyways, moving on to our next one. Moving on to our next super chat here. And if y'all know what I'm talking about, you can have a good laugh. But our second super chat is going to go to K-Dub Janky, who puts in a $50 donation. And huge shout out to K-Dub for that support, as always. Very generous. And huge shout out to the longtime channel legend. And they said, I just got back from Rome. Oh, very nice.
Oh, nice.
He said, Caesar was a great military leader, but what are the metrics to determine the best? And can military leaders from different eras be compared? And what is your pick for the two best? LSA Military Academy.
And hey, LSA Military Academy, baby! And I would have to say, thank you for the massive support, K-Dub Janky. And also, I hope you had a fun time in Rome, the old ancient city of Rome, which most of it's buried, but it's right down here.
In Rome, what does the Romans do?
You have to do what the Romans do. Anyways, moving on from that, I hope you had a fun time in Rome. One thing that's actually really interesting about Rome is that most of it is actually medieval in its time frame. Most of it was built in between, I believe, the 15th to 19th century, if I'm correct. Pretty much most of the Roman remains of ancient Rome lie under the city, which is wild. It's like absolutely crazy. It's like, what the hell? And let's see. Let me see if I can. Is this it? Oh, dang, I'm trying to find it really quickly. There is a huge palace that existed in central Rome. This isn't it. Where is it? It was on one of the main hills in the city of Rome. You've got to be kidding me. I've got to be able to find this thing. This was such an important part. I forgot what the name of the actual palace. Wait, is this it? Yes. This is it. It overlooks the Hippodrome, but this is the palace, at least what exists of it that's left. I believe it was the Palace of Augustine, or Emperor Augustine or something like that, but still, this thing was huge, and it overlooked the Hippodrome, which is this thing right here. It doesn't really exist anymore. Really only the southern end of the Hippodrome still exists, but this was one of the biggest structures in Rome. It was actually bigger than the Great Colosseum, which you can see right over here. This was the largest Colosseum built in antiquity, and it actually trumped it in size. You can actually see that clearly from the air. It had the same width as the Colosseum, but I believe it was about 3 or 4 times as long. It was about a mile long. Or a half.
And,
mile.
they were really ahead of their time with that great Coliseum. I've never seen entertainment like they used to have back in the day. They didn't play around. Like, you would never see the stadium not with the people in it. Like, you've seen, like, and even in the United States, even in, like, the big, like, venues and stuff like that, sometimes they won't sell out all the seats. Man, everybody showed up for the lion chasing the man, though. Like, when they put that man in there in that Coliseum with the lion chasing them, they showed up.
Man, I'm telling you, they just don't do it like they used to anymore, man. I want to see a guy get mauled by a lion here and there. I mean, it's just a high form entertainment. Listen, folks, like who doesn't want to see that? Like, who doesn't? Tell me in the chat. But beyond that, I'm just kidding, by the way. But beyond that, the ancient Rome is incredibly cool. I hope you were able to go take a look at it. Of course, it's wildly crowded. It's like any tourist trap in the world, but it's a tourist trap for a great reason. And I hope that you're also able to go look at the Curia Julia, which is right here. And this was actually the Senate House of Rome. So to give you all an idea of what the Senate House actually looked like. And let me see if I can get y'all a picture of the... Let me see if I can actually get y'all a picture of the inside. Here it is. This was the Senate Hall. It's wild to think about that because it's not that big or that grand of a building, really being honest, but this is where the most important decisions in the Roman Republic were made. Really, the most important decisions in the entirety of Roman history were made inside of this building right here. This is the Senate Hall. Let me see if I can find y'all a better picture of it. Dang, they don't really have some good pictures of the inside of this place, do they? Like, they're like, nope, you gotta come here to see it. It's like, oh, yeah, they're trying to really tourist trap this thing, aren't you? But I'll be dipped. There's, like, no good pictures at all. That's wild. Like, you would think they'd have pictures of the inside of this thing. But they try and keep it a good little secret here. But beyond that, this is the best picture that we have, so y'all just have to take my word at it. But still, an incredibly cool place. And I would say about military leaders, Caesar was a pretty good general. By most metrics, people would consider him incredibly good. But I would have to say, I cannot really compare leaders from different eras because it's almost like going, like with the modern comparison, who would beat whose ass in Star Trek versus Star Wars? Like, they're two completely different worlds. It's really hard to do that, and there's going to be a lot of bias in that, because you're going to have bias for one era over another. So usually I compare military leaders to each other from era to era, and don't really mix the eras together too much. So you're not going to see me comparing Caesar to Schwarzkopf, but you may see me comparing Schwarzkopf to, say, someone who was comparable in the era, like, say, let me think, Mattis, or someone along those lines. You would see me comparing those two together, but you wouldn't really see me comparing Caesar to Schwarzkopf or anything like that. And I bet you are getting a good idea of what one of my favorite military commanders was, which is General Norman Schwarzkopf. I think the guy was an absolute prodigy, a genius of his time in military thinking. And I just hate the post-World War II era, because no one really gives it the kind of credence and credit that it sometimes deserves. Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore, which is also from a similar era, because the post-World War II era, you can really take any commander from that time and compare them to each other, because it's really the same era. But I would say that Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore of the 7th Air Cav, or I believe it was actually the 1st Air Cav. Let me make sure to put that in. Yep, it's the 1st Air Cav. But Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore of the 1st Air Cav was also a very competent commander as well, because he was the first one to actually conduct any kind of a heliborne, implementation of heliborne tactics or assault tactics, which was really profound in its own way, and is a really big way of how the United States airborne, at least in most instances, conducts modern war, which is a influential thing. But Schwarzkopf is my number one. Beats out everyone, actually. I think the guy was a genius, and he's just massively under-recognized. People don't give him the kind of credit that he deserves, and puts him up there with the greats like other generals in American history, like Patton or Eisenhower, who were also great, and of course in a different era. That's the World War II era, so I don't really compare the two. But still, I believe that he deserves that kind of credit in the post-war era of being an amazing and brilliant military mind. Sadly passed before his time due to heart conditions. I believe it was congestive heart failure in 2012. But anyways, the second favorite of mine would actually be Napoleon. And a lot of people give a whole bunch of crap to Napoleon and go, oh, he marched into Russia in the winter. But listen, he literally defeated most of Europe over the course of multiple wars. It's not the Napoleonic War, it's the Napoleonic Wars. He actually won multiple wars over his short span of being the Emperor of France. He was a very, very good commander in his era. I would say that he was, of course, the best of his era. It's called the Napoleonic era because the guy set the tempo. I mean, he was the guy. Like, he was the go-to. So I would say that Napoleon is my second favorite commander ever in military history. I like to keep with modernity. So while a lot of people may go with Hannibal Barca or any other really famous commanders of their time, I would say that Napoleon and Schwarzkopf are my favorites by far. The two favorites that I ever have. I don't think anyone could top Schwarzkopf for sure. Someone may be able to top Napoleon. I mean, there are some contenders out there. I'm not going to get into that whole rabbit hole, though. But there certainly are contenders in my mind for people who could beat Napoleon in that era alone. But I'll save that for myself. But I will say that the entire 19th century is within the same era in my mind. And then the World War I and World War II commanders are of a similar era, although the wars were completely different in the kind of technology that was available and how they fought. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, K-Dub, Janky, and thank you so much for the incredible support in helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, I wouldn't be able to go down rabbit holes like that, and of course get to talk about really fun things like who my favorite commander would be. I also saw someone say Petraeus is overrated. You watch your mouth. We're in his book. Like, you can't say that. You can't say that about Petraeus. Petraeus wasn't that bad. Like, Petraeus was pretty good. And also, like, I'm not biased or anything. He only put us in his book, in the Ukraine war section. The book's called Conflict, by the way. We're not sponsored by Petraeus or anything, but if you wanted to read it and actually see our channel get mentioned in the pages of history, quite literally, it's in the book. I can't believe that we were put in it. That actually happened a while ago, but still, that was incredibly cool. So you can't talk crap about Petraeus in this chat, because Petraeus put us in the book, which I got to give a huge credit for, and that was really cool. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, K-Dub Janky. Thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the last question of this segment, and then we're going to be getting back into the news.
All right, and the last super chat of the segment is going to go to Howard Turgell, who always supports the channel in a very big way, and we appreciate that very much. And today he put in a $25 donation, and huge shout out to Howard for the support. He says, thanks for the solid content, and we appreciate the hard work to bring us the best Ukraine content available to us.
Dang, throwing it out there, dude. That was a high praise. The best.
That was.
Dang, that's the highest praise we can get, is being the best in the sphere. And not only that, we're not only just great at Ukraine content, we're great at all kinds of content. I mean, actually,
oh man, you're going in deep on the compliments. I'm telling you.
Oh yeah, we gotta write those pages, my boy. We gotta write those pages of history. But actually, funnily enough, the most wildly successful content we've ever put out on this channel was actually Iran-Israel content. We got a collective 1 million views in a single day covering what we covered with Iran and Israel. And not only that, we ended up getting 14,000 subscribers that day too. So by far, the most successful that this channel has actually been covering Iran-Israel content, which isn't really what we're known for, but still, we cover world news on this channel. Usually, Ukraine is the most important thing happening on a day-to-day basis, so it's usually the thing we do cover, so we kind of get known as a Ukraine war channel. But I would like to think that the Lee Spring Army and the Enforcer channel is not just a Ukraine channel, it's really a pro-Western channel, covering conflicts around the globe that pertain to the Western sphere. And I got to say that I thank you greatly for your kind words, Howard Turgell. That is a massive compliment. And we are greatly appreciative for people enjoying this channel like this and enjoying all the work we put into this, because it is a never-ending struggle. What's crazy is now that I've gotten the proper amount of sleep overnight, and I can kind of look back on this, I stayed up for 28 straight hours, and most of that time, especially through the night, I ended up just writing scripts and stuff for this channel to get ready for some long-form documentaries that are coming around in the future. And we literally have sleepless nights. We work around the clock, no joke, to keep this channel running and get the news out to y'all. And I cannot tell y'all how appreciative and how honored we are to be in that position. Whenever we say that we work so much and we're so tired, it always sounds like we're kind of complaining a little bit. But the reality is that the reason why we have anything to even gripe and complain about is because we love doing this so much, and we are so inspired to keep doing this thanks to all of y'all's kind words and massive appreciation of what we do, that we will go to unbelievable links, exhaustive links, to make sure that we keep on keeping this news rolling. And then we end up complaining about how tired we are, but we would be terribly sad. We would really have something to complain about if we didn't have all of y'all to get to cover the news to. We would actually be pretty sad if that was the case. But still, thank you so much for your kind words, Howard Turgell, and thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because much like every other super chatter tonight, you are a part of making this channel a reality and keeping this thing running on a day-to-day basis. And I got to thank you so much for helping to keep the flags of the Lee Spring Army flying high tonight, and making sure that this channel can continue to pioneer its specific kind of news coverage and to continue to cover news of the war. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it's time for us to move on into the Vovchansk front, where we got to see that the Russians dropped a second Fab 3000 onto another Ukrainian position within Lipsy. At least this is a supposed Ukrainian position. We see no vehicles nearby, so we're kind of doubting it. But there was the Fab. It missed the building again. These things are not accurate at all, by the way. They look like they miss quite often. But with that, that's the end of that clip. And meanwhile, the Ukrainians are curb stomping the Russians on the other side of the Vovchansk front near to the city. We were able to actually see some video footage of a Panzerhaubitze 2000 at work in the area. And by the way, we have to mute the audio because it's actually from a German media site. We're just using the footage to show you all the Panzerhaubitze 2000 in action for news reporting reasons, which is applicable under fair use. But we can see them moving around rapidly with the Panzerhaubitze. We can also see them moving the media crew that made this video as well, as they continue to talk about what's going on near the Russian border.
That's some thick armored plates that guy's got on too. I don't know what level that is, but those are like double the thickness I've usually seen.
2 level 4s put together. That man is
Damn,
stopping
yeah.
50 BMG right there.
Classic Bob 44 said in the live chat, Matt never complains. I try not to complain on stream, I really do, but sometimes when I get off the stream and I've like been holding it in all night, I'll cuss like a sailor, like if I'm being perfectly honest. But I try not to complain on stream. Like I'll complain a little bit now since we mentioned it. But last night was only 3 hours of sleep for me, and I got maybe an hour nap today as well. So it was like a sleepless time for me as well. But somehow I'm hanging in there. I'm doing pretty good tonight. I think the espresso is pulling me through.
Usually, by the way, y'all, just to let y'all in on a little behind the scenes thing, usually Matthew doesn't complain on air. He complains to me over the phone while we're running the show. You'd be like, dude, I'm tired, man. He's like, I'm tired, man.
I don't do that.
Well, yeah, a little bit. I say it out loud, though. Matthew would usually say it to me, and then I'll be like, dang, man, he's suffering. Usually we suffer simultaneously, though. Like last night, I think you and me, Matthew, were suffering an unbelievable amount together.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was suffering last night. I'll admit. I try not to show it though. I just like try to put on that voice and sort of like work over it. But sometimes like it shows some nights.
Man, the only reason, y'all, that I ever bring up things like I'm tired or something is because I have a specific way of talking about things, and sometimes I'll end up slipping up, and I won't say things as articulate or the way I usually would say it, and I'll realize it while I'm saying it, and I'll be like, dang, I bet people are realizing that and noticing it. I might want to explain to them why that's happening. That's usually why I bring it up. It's not really to complain to y'all, but really to kind of give y'all an idea of why things may sound a little off compared to normal. But we can see the Panzerhaubitze here continuing to operate and conduct fire support missions. And we see the impacts down range as well by the spotter drone. We see them loading the Panzerhaubitze and getting it ready to fire again. Man, I gotta tell you, those Panzerhaubitze 2000s are some of the roomiest SPGs I have ever seen. I mean, they beat out the Crab, the Paladin, everything. I mean, you could actually live inside of that thing.
Man, the Germans know how to make a really good vehicle. Like when it comes to like normal cars, military equipment, it's all designed so well. So clean on the inside of them as well. Like even that one's clean.
Dang, look at that carry position for the gun. I mean, that thing whipped down quick. And that's the end of that clip. Really neat to see. Really nice to know that the Panzerhaubitze 2000 is continuing to function in the area. And meanwhile, we got to see the 77th Air Mobile using some drones to fight the Russians in their positions in the area. We're going to be muting that, but we can see the Russians moving around in the foliage down there.
The shrubbery. Man, that Russian is violating the shrubbery at this point.
Bro, he was like fighting it, man. He was throwing hands with it. And we can see here the Russians continuing to move around in the trenches and the foliage, which is the right way to say that. I got a little comfortable there. I just screwed up on my English. Or something like that. But anyways, you see them getting hit. It looks like a drone just hit up there. You see this Russian just kind of hanging out down there, and that's the end of the clip. But moving on from that and a little bit further behind the lines, we got to see the Russians getting hit extremely hard, just a little bit further north in the tree lines near to the area.
I like how they put the little orange arrow on top of him just to let you know that that's definitely him.
Yeah, they're like, he's right here, Bliet. Kill him. Oh! It's like, dang. Oh, sorry, Michael Elmore, for the friendly fire. The Nightbot just doesn't like caps. Like, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It just gets rid of, like, all caps messages. I'm so sorry about that. But thank you for the kind words, though. And we can see the Ukrainians continuing to strike these Russian positions. Just hammering them. Getting them. Now we can see them absolutely slamming. I mean, they're just hitting them over and over up here. Not giving them a break. No breathing room. I mean, they're getting in on that pyroclastic flow. They told them they needed an op, so they burned off their fingerprints on the hot plate at Bani Hana. They ain't finding them.
Bani Hana.
Man, I'm telling you what. I mean, then no joke. Bonnie Hanna, man. It's a pretty good place. But anyways, that's the end of that clip. Nice to see the artillery coming on down. And moving on from
You're
that,
about
we
to get
also...
roasted, by the way.
What do you mean?
It's Benny Hanna.
Bonnie Hanna, Benny Hanna,
I'm about
whatever.
Bonnie Hanna.
Whatever.
Bonnie Hanna.
Anyways, here's the footage from Vovchansk, damn it. Take a look. Like, just take a look at it or something. There's the built-up area. It appears that it has been hit significantly over the past few days since the last time we saw it.
Oh, the roasting has begun.
Oh no! Oh god! Don't hurt me! It's Benny Hanna, not Bonnie Hanna. Sorry, everyone. Please don't hurt me, dude. Watch me get canceled because I said Bonnie Hanna. Look at that. Like, that's what if that happened? I'm not apologizing though. But anyways. We can see the drone continuing to fly over, showing the damage of the city.
Someone said same difference. Tell me something. How can it be same difference? Like, how can it be same and different at the same time? How does that work? Explain.
I support him for backing me up, though. You're a real one. Like, Nutu said canceled. No. But anyways, we can see the drone continuing to fly over the city. And that's the end of the clip. It's still showing the extensive damage that has been caused to Vovchansk, but nevertheless, the Ukrainian forces continue to hold and even push the Russians back. Moving on out of the Vovchansk area and further on down and into the Severonsky forest, we actually got to see a whole bunch of Russian forces getting hit by GMLRS missiles. I don't know what that took me so long to get that out for. Sometimes my brain just has cramps, but we can see them hitting these Russians pretty freaking hard. Really hitting them around a little.
Like that guy said on the phone at the Clown Motel. You want to come down there and knock you around a little bit?
Oh, I don't want you here. You don't sound sane. Like, dude, that guy was so deadpan
Want me to come down here and knock you around a little bit?
Dude, the Ukrainians are knocking him around a little bit. Maybe knocking some teeth out or something down there. But with that, that is the end of that clip. Nice to see the artillery fire being wildly effective. And moving on from that and down the line and into the area of Chasiv Yar, we were able to see that a Russian tank got destroyed. There it is. Oh, it's on the move. It's an actual moving, working Russian tank. It will not be. And the Ukrainians said, let there be light. And there it is. Sadly, it cut where the drone hit it, but we can see that the tank is now a roaring flame on the side of the tree line, and it has been destroyed. And with that, that's the end of the clip, but wonderful to see. We're very happy to see that. And meanwhile, we also got some drone footage of Chasiv Yar as well, showing us the conditions of the city. And of course, it has been heavily hit by artillery bombardments. This is the eastern side on the other side of the canal. But we can see that the Russians have been hammering Chasiv Yar in an attempt to uproot the Ukrainian forces and push them out. Huh, someone came in here and tried to say who the hot dog man was. Like, that's allowed. Oh, goodness. Matthew, that was
You don't speaketh thy name of ye hot dog man. He remains an unknown, anonymous, and abysmally failing.
Aw, man. I just wish I could get a sliver of attention to try and steal viewers because I'm so boring. I literally lose subscribers when I speak. Aw, man.
Man, the hot dog man's like the YouTube equivalent of a North Korean soldier. Could I please just have a morsel, sir? Just a morsel.
Wait,
Anything.
1 second. Hang on. When this video clip is over, dude, I'm gonna show you the emoji I'm talking about. This one is literally a hot dog man right here on the YouTube channel. Oh my lord. But the damage, of course, to Chasiv Yar has been significant. But still, there's a bit of a silver lining to damage like this whenever we see it, because it does let us know that the Ukrainians are holding their lines so well that the Russians just end up hitting the same spots over and over, trying to knock the Russians, trying to knock the Ukrainians out, but they never really end up succeeding. Now it's time for me to show you that meme, Matthew, now that video clip is over. This do be hot dog man right here.
Oh, no. Oh, goodness, man. That's something right there. Damn.
Oh my lord. Oh goodness.
Kind of like more like it to me, the two fingers pointing at each other like that. You see that other emoji over there, kind of like that. Please,
This one?
we have just one viewer. Yes.
or better yet, let's see here. Dude, why does that really look like Hot Dog Man though? Right there. Why does that kind of look like him?
Damn. Man, these emojis are wild. I'm not gonna lie.
Dude, this one right here, I don't think that's begging, dude. I think that's what Hot Dog Man looks like when he goes for his romps in the woods. Like I think that's what he's looking.
Damn.
But anyways, with that, it's time for us to move on from Chasiv Yar and down the line and into the area of Avdiivka, where we got to see that near Arkhangelsk, the Su-34s conducted a near miss. I would want to play the audio, but the audio is like a mix of being kind of funny and kind of cringe. So I was kind of a little debating. We'll just play the audio. Here's the audio. You know what? No, I've decided we're not playing the audio. I'm going to mute it and just play without the audio. But we see them dropping the glide bombs here of the bomb of the Su-34, and then we can actually see their impacts. They actually showed where the bombs impacted, which was literally in the middle of an empty field in the area. So completely ineffective. But with that, we are now going to be moving on from that little bit of news and on into our next bit in Otratine, where we got to see that the Russians were hiding in the basement. And here's the clip.
Man, what was he doing though?
He was just having fun. Oh, look, he's burrowing. Let me put this stack of bricks over the front entrance. Make it look less conspicuous. But I'll leave my backpack right here so people know I'm about to be crawling back out in a minute. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Oh. Whoa. That was a big bomb.
That was a pretty big one. Is he coming out? He's not coming on then. Nope. He's not. Yeah, I think that guy didn't have a good day.
Man, this is almost as bad as, you know, those little ant hill like mound toy things where you put the ants in the dirt, and then like some sick people will like shake it up. It's kind of like the equivalent.
Dude, the ants' hard work and labor, one sadistic person away from ending it all. But with that, that's the end of that clip, and it appears that that burrowing Russian didn't really make it too far. Moving on from that clip and into our next little bit of footage, we got to see that a T-80 BVM got destroyed in the area as well. Chad music ensues. Doink! Oh, wait a minute. It kind of sat on the front glacis a little bit. Let's see if that was enough to blow up the tank. Oh. Oh, wait a minute. There were still crew members inside? Bizarre. Anyways, it's on fire now. So that did it. And that's the end of the clip. But hey, not bad. Not bad at all. Moving on from that and out of the area of Avdiivka and down into the area of Novomikhailivka, we got to see that an OSA anti-air system was destroyed in this area. Check it out. Oh, we're going to be muting the copyright-free political music, political action music from the background. But we can see the OSA fire at the drone. The missile misses, goes right over the drone, does not hit it. And now we can see that the OSA got hit in return and was knocked out. And that's the end of that clip. Wonderful to see. And good to know that those Ukrainian forces are making sure to just keep on obliterating Russian forces, even if they try and fight back. But with that, it's now time for us to move up into Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 849 of the war. And so, without further ado, one second, we actually have two statements. So this one's actually to the officer. So we are going to be going back to this one because this is like the general address from today. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. Speech!
Give me speech.
Дорогі українці, українки, сьогодні слова нашої вдячності, зокрема усій команді України, яка працює заради нашої держави і людей на європейському напрямку. Маємо сьогодні вагомий здобуток в нашому русі в Євросоюз. Те, що ми планували на це півріччя, повністю реалізовуємо. Євросоюз затвердив переговорну рамку для України. Багато за це боролись на різних рівнях, і саме цією рамкою визначається формат та порядок перемовин про вступ з нашою державою. І вже наступного тижня перемовини фактично розпочнуться. Це реально історичні речі. Україна є і буде частиною єдиної Європи завжди. Сьогодні я затвердив склад делегації України для початку перемовин про вступ. Також хочу привітати і Молдову, весь народ Молдови та пані президентку Санду. Сьогодні затверджено переговорну рамку Євросоюзу також для Молдови. І це важливо, щоб кожна країна, кожне суспільство, яке реально сповідує європейські цінності і прагне реальної європейської сили, щоб кожен такий народ був разом з усіма іншими в об'єднаній Європі. Говорив щойно з президентом Польщі Дудою, подякував за підтримку нашої держави і нашої оборони, і нашого руху в Євросоюз, і нашої глобальної ініціативи саміту миру. Ми обговорили подальші спільні кроки, різнопланові кроки, зокрема, позиції перед самітом НАТО у Вашингтоні. Ми готуємо також подальші кроки щодо реалізації пунктів формули миру. Ми цінуємо і те, що Польща може допомогти нам із залученням інших держав, тих, хто поки не приєднався до спільної міжнародної роботи заради миру. Зусилля кожного можуть дати результат для усіх. Звичайно, сьогодні було багато уваги фронту нашим військовим, нашим перспективам. Була, зокрема, доповідь голови служби зовнішньої розвідки, була доповідь головкома. Пишаюся усіма нашими людьми, які надзвичайно стійко, надзвичайно хоробро зараз відбивають російські штурми. Харківщина. Ситуація стала ще більш стабілізованою, і це заслуга наших воїнів. Донеччина надзвичайно складно, особливо це Покровський напрямок, десятки російських атак щодобово. Дуже важливо вистояти там, знищувати окупанта і не давати Росії жодного приводу сподіватись на те, що у війні проти України Росії щось вдасться. Ми можемо і повинні вибивати для України результат. В усьому завжди, коли є можливість, коли є шанси і коли ми самі зобов'язані створювати для себе шанси на перемогу, на успіх України. І наша вдячність сьогодні збірній. Щоразу, коли хлопці тиснуть, намагаються, прагнуть перемогти, все вдається. Я говорив сьогодні з ними перед матчем із Сергієм Ребровим, з Андрієм Шевченком, з хлопцями. Дуже сподівався, що буде хороший результат для України, для наших людей, для того, щоб всіх підтримати. На шляху до нашої перемоги кожна перемога потрібна. І сьогодні цей результат збірної є. Дякую всім, хто додає Україні сил. Дякую всім, хто б'ється і вірить, що переможемо. Слава Україні!
And Heroes Slava. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 849 of the news of the war in Ukraine. And that moves us on into the second segment of this stream, where we get to talk to all of y'all about whatever y'all want to talk about. Do y'all want to talk about, I don't know, hood reviews? Do y'all want to talk about, I don't know, where y'all are from? Do y'all want to talk about history? Do y'all want to talk about anything? I mean, anything and everything. Food, even. We could talk about literally anything y'all want. But I do have to thank all of y'all so much once again for watching so far tonight, and of course enjoying the channel. And I've got to say, that we have an incredibly big announcement to make. I have to welcome the brand new 800 subscribers that have joined us today on this channel. An absolutely incredible number, unbelievable to see, and wonderful to know that so many people are continuing to find this channel and, of course, join the Lee Spring Army. But with that, it's time to talk to the people who make up the Lee Spring Army. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
And it is now time to jump into our final poll question of the night. And this one says, Israel prepares to attack Lebanon to fight Hezbollah, and that NATO has prepared evacuation plans, specifically Canada, and also outside of NATO, we have Kuwait saying they're going to get their people out. And what are your thoughts? 65% said Israel will invade Lebanon, while 17% said only time will tell on this issue, and 11% said Israel simply won't invade Lebanon. And on this one, I would say that all the signs seem to indicate that Israel is planning on going in to Lebanon to take out Hezbollah. Of course, that is somewhat crystal balling, but the signs are adding up. Like I said, Canada is preparing a massive evacuation of its citizens from the territory of Lebanon. Kuwait is also getting involved as well, and it's only a matter of time till we see an actual travel advisory issued for Lebanon. So, to me, it looks like it's probably likely to happen, but only time will tell. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that a ground invasion of Lebanon is possible. It has happened in the past. It most likely will happen here in the near future. The Hezbollah forces are continuing to attack the Israelis, and the Israelis will most likely switch from the defensive to the offensive here soon and attempt to wipe out the organization. So going off of that, I would have to say it most likely will happen that Lebanon will be invaded maybe within this next week, although I'll be honest with y'all, Twitter timetables are usually highly inaccurate, but we probably will see that an invasion of Lebanon will happen at some point. And dang, Hokey Redneck, but still,
Whoa!
With that, whoa, Jack, whoa, but with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the questions. And what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and also real quick, if you're curious what the time schedule might look like for a potential ground invasion of Lebanon by Israel, we're told, or at least by unconfirmed sources, that it could be by June the 24th that something occurs. So if something is going to happen, it'll probably happen in the next few days, but we'll have to wait and see. So it's not too far off. But anyways, jumping into our Super Chat questions here, we have that very generous and massive, the largest Super Chat of the night. This one is from Hokey Redneck, who's making a return once again, and he put in a $100 donation. And huge shout out to Hokey for that very generous support, massive support. It showed up in big bright red in the chat box. He said, Government 45 and 70. Thoughts?
It's a 45-70. 45 and 70.
45 and 70, man. 2 for 1.
Man, I'm telling you, man, that 2 for 1. but let's see here. 45-70.
Special deal.
Government.
Limited time only.
My goodness gracious, do I love 45-70. I personally do not own a 45-70. I would love to one day, but I do not have one currently. But 45-70 do be hidden. This is a 30-06 right here to the left. This is a 45-70, and then this is a 50-90. But the 45-70 is an absolutely interesting round. If you ever look at the drop on this thing, it actually has a perfect rainbow arc. Here is the drop, or really the elevation required in range in yards to be able to hit a specific target at a specific range. This is 308 or 7.62 by 51 in pink, and then in black is the trajectory of a 45-70 round, which it is actually insane. It literally takes a rainbow arc to its target, which is wild. But it is a huge bullet. I mean, the 45-70 round is 405 grains. I mean, that is nuts. To put that into comparison, a 7.62 by 51 round or a 308 is only 168 grains. So the 45-70 is at least twice as large, a little bit over twice as large, really 2.5 times the mass of a 308 round or a 7.62 by 51 round, either way you want to put it. It is a crazy round, and there are a lot of cool guns that use the 45-70 round. Let me see if I can find one here really quickly. By the way, there's this wacky revolver that uses a 45-70 round. I don't like them, but there are some really neat guns. First, of course, would be the Springfield Model 1873, which is the Springfield Trapdoor. These are incredibly cool. I love them. I think they're neat. I would love to have one. but I'll never have one probably. I just don't know. It never works out. Every time I try and look at one, it just never turns around. But there is another cool one that does use 4570, which is the Sharps rifle. Right here, which is a falling block rifle that shoots in that fires in 4570. Although you can get Sharps rifle in really any caliber that, well, rifle size caliber that existed at the time. But these things are really nice as well. And then there, of course, there's a load of lever actions made in the modern day that shoot 4570. But it's a bit of it's getting to be a little bit more of an obscure round these days. They're starting to cost about $2 a shot, which is getting into the category of being almost 50 BMG land, because 50 BMG I think is about $5 a shot these days. But I think 4570 is absolutely incredible. Is the most effective round in the modern day? Of course not. But is it incredibly cool? Hell yeah. And that's really one big thing to me in the gun world, speaking of guns, is that a lot of people are always into effectiveness, which I find really kills a lot of the joy and fun of guns. I'm really into whatever's fun. Like, if a gun looks fun and it is fun, then it's fun and it's good to have. If it is not cool and it's efficient, then I'm not really a big fan. That's why I've never really gotten a Glock, because while it's efficient, it isn't really that cool to me. Like, a 1911 is less efficient, I would have to admit. But it is cooler to me, and it's more fun to shoot, so I go with that. Or a 44 Magnum, or anything like that for that matter. If it looks cooler, and it is cooler, and it is more fun to shoot, I will get it. And so, let's see here. I hope that does address that the best I can. I just read something from Chris. Chris said, you going to try and get that M1 Garand? And I actually have one, and they are great. I love the M1 Garand. And also, we are eventually going to make a review on one. I don't know when we'll get back to making gun reviews, but it is somewhere way off in the future that we'll start getting back to gun reviews, and we will be able to make one on the M1 Garand, which will be very fun. But with that...
Also, what is this your Fed's talking about here? Talking about, what do you think of the Springfield Armory 9mm EMP? What is that exactly? Can we see a picture of this?
Let's see. Springfield Armory 9mm EMP. Let me take a look at this thing. 1911 EMP. Ew. Ew. No, I don't like that. It's like, ew. Gross.
Let's see. It's a 9mm though. It looks like a very compact one. Let's see. Damn, thank you, LSA Rock.
Dang.
That's huge support. Good lord, thank you. Let's see here. I'm trying to look at it. Let's see here. It's between the full-size 1911 and the 911. The EMP. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if this is the same size as a Glock 43, but me personally, I would rather just have the Glock if it were me. I mean, this is cool looking, but, you know, then I would just rather have a 1911 if it came down between this or an actual 1911. This is kind of like a weird version of it. But what do you think, Enforcer? How do you like this thing?
I don't like it because it's like a massively undersized 1911, and it's in 9mm, and it really removes everything that's cool about the 1911. At least in my mind. So I'm not really a big fan of this thing, but Springfield does have some pretty cool handguns. I think the SA-35s are probably the best because it's their modern day recreation of a high power, which I really like the high power design. And by the way, a lot of people get High Point confused with high power. High Point is a shitty company, and High Power is a very good pistol. I want to make that difference very clear. But I like these. I actually got to shoot one. Someone I know had one and just got it about a month or two ago, and they let me shoot it, and it was incredibly nice. I really liked it. I would still try and get a real Browning High Power or an FN High Power, but if you ever wanted to just get a budget High Power, this is not a bad one. I would say it's really good. But yeah,
is it just me though, or is it Springfield Armory? This is just my opinion, by the way. I'm sure people love Springfield out there, but Springfield's guns to me kind of seem or come off as a little bit cheap. I mean, they're not cheap in the price exactly. They're decently, moderately expensive, but the guns themselves, for some reason, there's something about them that just does not click with me very well. I don't know what it is, but I just don't care for it. If I had to get a 1911, I would get a Kimber over a Springfield any day. And also, like, that Hellion thing that we had shot before was very cheap feeling, very plasticky. Not my thing, really.
Yeah, I mean, you know, also, we had a Hellion at a time, Oh my goodness, y'all. I can't even tell y'all the story of how bad our Hellion was because we got it for gun review. Everything that we've gotten was for a gun review, but we ended up getting rid of this thing because it was so bad that we just couldn't even use it. Like everything went wrong with it. The firing pin got bent somehow. I mean, I was not happy with this thing at all, to be entirely honest. So I'm not really a big fan of Springfield Armory in the modern day per se, but I am a big fan of Springfield Armory as a historic armory. They're an incredibly cool armory, but I don't know. Springfield Armory really doesn't do it for me anymore. I don't really think they're that great. Colt has really come around though. I think Colt is a really good company nowadays, but they will rip you off just for the name brand of Colt. And then you have a whole bunch of other gun companies that try and imitate Colt designs, which are okay, but you know, you kind of get what you pay for on some of them. But I don't know. I would have to say, though, in general, 4570 is not a bad round. I like it. I think it's cool. And one day I hope to have a 4570 rifle. That would be my hope. But still, thank you so much once again for supporting Hokey Redneck and helping this channel to keep on running. Because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help us to keep this channel running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have the new largest super chat of the night, and this one goes to LSA Rocks. And LSA Rocks put in a huge $200 donation, the biggest one of the night. Huge shout out to LSA Rocks for that massive support. He said, "Hi, enforcers, keep up the good work, and hooah!"
And hooah, baby! But still, thank you for the unbelievable support. Also, really cool that your name is LSA Rocks. I love that name. Really neat.
I love that.
And I gotta say, thank you so much once again for wanting us to keep up the good work. Thank you for massively supporting the channel and helping us to keep up the good work, because it is going to be folks like you who help to make this channel possible. Everyone who supports this channel makes it a reality and makes it possible for us to run this channel. Whether it be a $1 donation or a $1 super chat, because donations and super chats are different. Whether it be a $1 super chat or a $500 super chat, which is the largest one, or like in your instance, a massive $200 super chat, each and every single one of them helps this channel to keep on running. And we are unbelievably appreciative to you, LSA Rocks, for helping us to be able to keep this channel running and make sure that the LSA stays rocking. I got to thank you so much once again for that incredible support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now and getting to do this. And so thank you so much once again. I cannot believe that kind of support, because it is something to say that viewer support doesn't and this is something that I've hit on a little bit night after night, but really, and I want to make this very clear before I say it, because there may be an ulterior way that this comes off. When I say this, I'm not trying to encourage anyone to support the channel, but I do want to make it very clear how we have so many yet so few kind of a deal. There are hundreds of thousands of people who watch this channel every day. As a matter of fact, to give you all a specific number, just yesterday we had 292,000 individual views that came in on this channel. 300,000 people watched this channel in a 24-hour period yesterday. And out of all of those people, I believe only 35 of them directly supported this channel, meaning that 300,000 people got to watch this news the way it is supposed to be, free to watch. Not a single ad has to be seen. No extra effort has to be put in on the part of any member of the Least Spring Army. But 35 people made it possible for this channel to run one more day. And it is the very, very small select amount of people who support this channel that make it financially possible for Matthew and me to do this every single day and to make sure that we can keep this news coming out. That's why we always make sure to name each one of y'all off individually, to give y'all individual recognition and massive thanks for y'all's support, and to give personalized time to each of y'all, because y'all's impact is significant, not just to our lives, but to the lives of hundreds of thousands of people who use this channel as their primary source of news. If it wasn't for that select few people who supported this channel every day, this channel would not be possible. And that's why we always make sure to give a huge amount of thanks to everyone who decides to support this channel. And of course, out of that 300,000 people, there are a lot of people who can support the channel, but they don't want to. And that's perfectly fine. The channel was made to be free to watch. That is the premise of this channel. It's an ad-free, sponsor-free show. Y'all don't even have to spend a few seconds of y'all's time watching an ad at the beginning and end or in the middle part of these streams. Y'all shouldn't have to. The news should be free. If y'all enjoy the news and y'all want to see news of this kind, y'all can support it and help it to stay on air. If not, that's fine. That's how I believe news should work. And that's how we've been able to work it for 849 days, thanks to folks like LSA Rocks. And I got to thank you so much once again for that unbelievably massive amount of support and helping this channel to continue to be possible. And I've got to say thank you so much once again for helping us to make sure that we can keep this stream and really the entire channel as non-monetized as possible, and to make sure just to get the news out to y'all without having any kind of an incentive to appease sponsors or to appease any other kinds of people, like, you know, let's say sponsors or maybe even YouTube AdSense, in the way we cover news and the way we report it to y'all. Y'all allow us to be free agents in the news world and do what we want. And really, in the end, it's what y'all want, because it's becoming more and more popular in the end. And so I got to thank you so much once again. A great amount. I cannot thank you enough for unbelievable support like that, because it's not often that people support this channel in such a unbelievably massive way as that. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to John Garner, who just threw in a $50 donation. Huge shout out to John as well for the generous support as well. And he says, what can we say? We love you. And he puts in that heart face. He has the hearts in the eyes, I'm telling you what. Thank you very much, John.
Hey, and thank you so much, John. And of course, we love you, and we love the entire Lee Spring Army. And I gotta say, thank you so much for really enjoying this channel and helping this channel to keep on running like everyone has been. It is a massive thing, and we thank you so much for that and helping this channel to keep on running and helping it to be possible, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best we can. And thank you so much for sending some kind words our way and letting us know that people really do enjoy this channel and enjoy seeing it running. And before we move on to the next one, I was just told by someone in the chat that folks is a bit hokey. Well, folks, I hate to tell you this, folks, but saying folks down here in the South, it's just what we do. People say folks all the time.
Folks, I mean, even the big guy says folks. Look. Here's the deal.
All right, look, Jack, at least we're not saying my friends, Jack. That really is hokey, Jack. You want me to slap that phone out of your hand, Jack? Mr. President, I'm sorry.
Here's the deal. I lost it.
What?
Here's the deal. I lost it.
Oh, I thought you literally meant you lost it. I didn't know that was a gag. I was like, what do you mean you lost it?
Come on, man.
Oh, come on, man. Come on. But anyways, folks is what we say. Because I will be honest with you. There's specific things that people say when they cover news. It's either everyone. I usually say everyone. But then in the middle of the show, I'll say folks. Matthew almost always says folks. And then really everyone else out there in the world says my friends. And I have to say, it really grinds my gears to hear the my friends thing. Because it comes off as so corny and so like, that really does come off corny and canned. Because, like, you know, like, there are 300,000 people who watch this channel every day. I don't know all of y'all personally to call y'all friends. Like, you know, that's the honest truth. A lot of y'all in the chat, I would consider y'all friends because y'all been here forever, and I know each of y'all by this point. But most viewers, I would not call friends, and to call them friends is really patronizing and sounds really fake. That's why we say everyone or we say folks. Because, you know, like, I'm not going to sit there and try and, you know, like, it feels like a con man thing to say, hello, my friends, to people you don't even really know. So I generally avoid saying my friends because it just doesn't really come off that well, at least to me. But with that, I hope that does.
I'll tell you though, there's no way that I'm getting folks out of my system. I've been saying folks forever. There's no way I'm getting out of it. Every single short war video that I do, it's good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt. I can't get that out of my system, man. I got to keep doing it.
Remember that one time you were dogged for some reason before we went on air about saying that? You remember that?
I remember that, man. I'll never forget it.
Man, I was like, what's this disrespect for? Like, what is he getting all this heat for? But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. But still, before we move on, before we get sidetracked too much, thank you so much once again for support, John Garner, and having such kind words to say. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Andy L, who threw in a $50 donation as he was leaving tonight. And huge shout out to Andy for that support. And if you're hearing this tomorrow, huge thanks. He said, good night to the LSA and see you Sunday night for the fundraiser.
And thank you so much, once again, for the kind words and the support and helping this channel to keep on running, NDL. And I will see you Sunday night for the fundraiser. I hope that you have a fun time away from the stream, and when you come back, we are ready to blow away a fundraiser goal. But of course, good night to you, NDL. Thank you so much once again for the incredible support, and thank you as well for sending in incredible bit of support to help this channel to keep on running. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again. And also, Vito Lucina said, don't say it in Chicago. You mean folks? I mean, well, we could say folks, like the Watcher said. The Watcher said, you say folks.
Yeah, Volkswagen. You want some Volkswagen, good sir?
Geschluckt mal Leimen in den deutschen Volken.
This is your car. This is the people's car.
Volkswagen.
It's all of our car, you know?
Man, those Germans were kind of low-key commie, when you think about it. Like, they're calling it a people's car. It's like,
it was a socialist party after all.
Yeah, that's one thing that people never realized about World War II. It was really the democratic world versus really just socialism and communism, just different varying degrees of it. People don't get that. Like, everyone always say, like this is one argument I can't really make that one on stream, but it's an argument that really annoys me, because the Nazi Germans actually had far more in common with the Soviet Union than they did with really anyone else, which is kind of the weirdest thing about that whole war, especially in the Eastern Front, is that you had pretty similar ideologies fighting each other, kind of in a way. And some people are going to be like, no, and then I'm going to be like, no, because, okay, I'm going to break it down really quickly, because I'm going to have to defeat this before it even pops up, all right? First, both the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany were ultra-nationalist. Okay, like the Soviet Union was ultra-nationalist in the concept of the Soviet Union as a nation. Nazi Germany did the same thing with the Nazi Germany. Then at the same time, they both had heavily socialist economic ideas and a lot of central planning that went on from the central government. Two very similar things. Not only that, both of them were dictatorships, which are wildly similar as well. Both of them had an inner circle. With the Soviets, it was the Central Committee. With the Germans, it was really just Hitler's inner circle, I guess you could call them. Or really the German High Command, if you want to call them that, although that doesn't really grasp the depth of it. They really were the same. Like, that's the thing I don't get with people where they're like, oh, we can't go one way towards the direction of Hitler, and we can't go the other way towards the direction of Stalin. It's like, they're both the same. Like, if you go either direction, you're going down the same one. Like, they're both going the same way. Because there is Western democratic values, which are on one end of the spectrum. It doesn't go left or right. It's really just all one direction from here. And then you go from Western liberal democracies is the best way to describe them. And then you just go down a path to hell. And it either ends up with you being a fascist or a communist, but they're not really that different when you break them down, especially when you look at them in the World War II lens. They weren't really that different. Now, the Japanese were completely different. Like, they were. But the Nazi Germans and the Soviets, they just weren't. They were very, very similar. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And our next one is going to go to, let me scroll back up here and find out. This one's going to Darren Quinn, who put in a $25 donation.
Hey!
And huge shout out to Darren for that support. And I do not see a question to address here, but just checking one more time to make sure. Let's see here. Darren Quinn. I'm looking through my spreadsheet. He did have one, but it's in, I think, his second super chat. Yes, it is. So we're going to combine them. There's a 25 from Darren Quinn. Huge shout out for that. And there's also a 10 from Darren Quinn. And he said, Toadfish, who runs the North Korea, goes pop squeak.
What?
Man, it's so random. I don't even know.
Pop squeak. What the hell does that mean? Like, what does that mean, Matthew?
Hip squeak.
Pop Squeak. I like Pop Squeak better, man, because it like the idea you can get there is so visual, from that. It really
And
is.
Kim Jong-un ain't a pipsqueak. I'll tell you that right now. That man takes up the whole chair. He's no pipsqueak.
Man, his clothes goes pop and his shoes goes squeak. Pop squeak. Like every time he moves, like that is Kim Jong-un. But I respect it. I respect it a great deal. And I gotta say, thank you so much for the support, Darren Quinn, and helping this channel to keep on running. And I'd agree with you. Pop Squeak over there. That's what we're calling him from now on. It's gonna be Pop Squeak. Or some of that hawk too. Oh god. Dude, that meme has been everywhere. I don't know if y'all seen that meme lately, but it's getting on my nerves because like you see it everywhere. It's like the only meme template that's being used right now is that one. But
and once you get the whole context of what was being said, it's actually kind of nasty. It's like I thought it was innocent at first. Yeah, I thought it was innocent at first. I thought, oh, it's just like some innocent thing. But I heard the whole video, and I was like, oh man, I was like, people turned that into a popular meme. Well, that's pretty bad.
Man, I'm telling you what, man. I was like, dude, I first saw it and I was like, what the hell is that lady talking about? And then I watched the whole video like you did, and I was like, oh. Ew! Oh, I was like, ew, gross. And then after that, it completely lost any of the minimal appeal it had. And everyone in here now, I see a lot of people have apparently seen this meme. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that well. Thank you so much once again for support, Darren Quinn, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Wisconsin, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much for that support. He said, hey! Hello to me marmots.
Oh, hello there. Would you like a plum, Governor? I don't know why I'm talking
about. Get him out here. Pull him out the shed. Bring him out.
Aw, man, I just wish I could get some views. 1 second, sorry.
Man, that marmot's in the fields.
Dude, that marmot's got sad harmonica playing. But we don't have sad harmonica up in this house. We have the House of Marmot. Oh, hello there! Oh!
Hello there! It's not picking me up on the mic. Hello there! Good evening, good sir. Welcome to Great Britain. Would you care for a plum? Would you care for some rock? Would you care for something? Some fat tail? Anything?
Aw, man, at least my content is dog shit. Thank God.
Shut your mouth, Governor. Stop it. You can't handle the truth. Be quiet.
Shut your mouth, Governor. Dude, I would hate to be someone so delusional, such in the throes of mental illness, that you sit there and go, oh man, my videos are getting no views. Maybe because they're pretty shit. No, it can't be that I'm shit. It has to be that all of the viewers are wrong and they just don't realize talent when they see it. Like, you've got to be next level delusional, mentally ill to think on that kind of a level.
Enforcer, you know what it means when your videos get no views? You know what that means? That means people don't want to watch it. That means they saw it and they said, yuck. Get that away. It's unintentional. Get away. I don't want to see it. That's nasty. Oh, damn.
Ew, yuck. Effing Twitter bullshit.
You'll do what you're told.
You'll do what you're told, Governor. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Wisconsin. And supporting a little bit of a Marmot cameo from Alan the Marmot. We love the Marmot. Alan the Marmot is a legend. And we absolutely love to see this wonderful creature grace our screens every single night. Hopefully every night. Sometimes we don't have Alan the Marmot on anymore some nights because people just don't request him. But we love Alan, and Alan loves y'all. Alan is a part of this Lee Spring Army, just like y'all are. And I gotta say, thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping it keep on running and letting Alan have some breathing room. Oh, hello there! And so with that, we are now on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support.
Yes, indeed. And our next one is another massive $50 donation from Hokey Redneck. This is his second support of the night, and huge shout out to Hokey for the massive support tonight. And he said, fluffy butt dogs are the best, which means that corgis qualify because they have very, very fluffy butt. The corgi butt is notorious in the dog world. Look at it. Look at that rump. I'm telling you what.
Man, I can already see Mr. Corgi right now doing his flip and wallowing. Like he does, he goes, he's like flipping and wallowing. That would be Mr. Word. Monsieur will work. and we love the baby corgis. And this is a very pretty corgi right here. Very beautiful, nice red coat, nice white tuft. Very, very, very astute. Also, we have corgi wheelchairs. Those are actually kind of common. But anyways, moving on from that, look at this corgi with a tail. Look at this corgi with a tail. Our corgis don't have tails. Their tails were docked, but they look really cute with tails. They look like little baby foxes. And I wish that Mr. Corgi had a tail, because he really looks like a fox even without a tail. He would look just like one with a tail. He would be cute. He is cute, but he would be even cuter. But beyond that, we love corgis. And corgis have big fluffy butts. And big fluffy butts on dogs, they really are cute. Like, look at that. You can't deny. Oh, look at that. Isn't that cute? That is a cute little dog right there. And also, look at this one, man. Look at it.
Man, what the hell? What happened to him?
Hey, I don't
Looks like it got bit by a snake.
I don't even know. I think it got bit by a bee or something. Dude, look at this one, man. It's got a watermelon on its head. Dude, look at this one.
Oh, man. You got to watch out for watermelons around corgis. I don't know what it is. I've seen several of them on video. Like, they'll absolutely kill a watermelon if you put it near them. I don't know what it is about that, though.
Dude, I've seen our corgis kill for watermelon, man. Like, that, for some reason, they love it. Also, corgis love bread, like, an excessively high amount. I don't know what it is. Oh, look, dude, that looks just like Mr. Corgi.
Yeah, that's pretty close. He's got a little something on the snout, though. Needs to be wiped off. But rather than that, it looks pretty similar.
Man, that is Mr. Corgi. Look at him. Isn't he cute? And then we also have, let's see, what else? Do we have any other cute corgis? These are cardigan corgis, by the way. They're a little different, but they are also lovable. It's just that they're not as cute as the Pembroke corgis, in my opinion, but I still love them because they're corgis. But have y'all seen, you know what? Let me show this to y'all. A Swedish Valhund, because they're actually what corgis come from. Like, this is one of the original breeds that made the corgi, is the Valhund. And it looks like a small corgi wolf. That's what they kind of just look like this one.
Hey, yeah, it's a strange looking dog. It's like small, but it's not really. It's kind of weird. That's a weird dog.
Dude, why in the world does this one look like it's looking at the camera person like, did you even ask my permission before you took this photograph? You know, like, why in the world does it look so
Yeah,
stuck
really.
up?
I'll be honest. I don't think I like this dog for some reason. I mean, it's a good dog, but I don't think I would have one.
I would like to see one in real life and get it. Oh my goodness. But I would like to get a first impression of this thing to see if I really like them, because I think I would. I think they're pretty cute looking. And they're very wolfy. But really, once you get used to corgis, like, you can't really be like, oh yeah, you know, I like another dog. Like, they're such precious, smart dogs. Corgis are truly the best, in my opinion. Like, no joke. We thought that they were going to be all right when we got them. Certainly became our #1 favorite dog. Love them to death. And if y'all ever get the chance to get a corgi, try and get one, because you will love that dog. They're the best dogs you'll ever have. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, at least in my opinion. And I would agree with you, Hokey Redneck. Dogs with fluffy butts are the cutest. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the incredible support tonight and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have one from Steve T, who puts in a $20 donation. And a huge shout out to Steve for that generous support. He says, do you think that Russia's defensive pact shows Russia is desperate because they are in a position they can no longer defend themselves, and a win for cheap single-use drones, cheap man-pads, ATGMs, landmines, and big money air defense?
Oh, certainly. I think this war is a big winner for all of those categories, no question at all, Steve T. But as far as the defensive pact goes, it's not really about Russia not being able to defend itself. It's more of a big picture strategic play by the Russians to create a diplomatic incident in Korea that the United States will have to get involved in, which they could possibly use to barter for concessions with Ukraine. It's not really that they've been weakened to the point that North Korea would come to defend them, because North Korea is certainly nobody that would be able to defend the Russians. You know, like, look at their army. Like, it's non-existent, really. But it's more of what I'm saying about the diplomatic incident creator. That's what this really is. And actions like these always seem a little bit weird until you realize the common denominator in Korea and the common denominator in Ukraine is America. So let me guide you through what I think the Russians are trying to do right now with Korea. And maybe it'll make sense or maybe it won't. And maybe you'll still disagree. But this is how I'm seeing it right now. The Russians want America to stop supporting Ukraine. they want that to happen, or they at least want to create enough pressure in the American public's mind that the leaders of the nation, whoever they may be, will decide that it is no longer worthwhile to pursue support of Ukraine, because the public is so scared of the consequences of continued support. So what the Russians are doing right now is that they made a defensive pact with North Korea so that way they could supply them with the weapons, so that way the situation on the Korean Peninsula will become a lot more tense. It will get a lot more close to an all-out war, which, of course, South Korea and the United States would want to avoid. Everyone always wants to avoid a war. So then they'll go, wait a minute, you got to stop doing this, Russia. And Russia will go, I will only stop doing this if you agree to these terms. The United States will get the terms, and the terms will be something along the lines of, you've got to give up all support to Ukraine, and then you also have to not recognize them as a legitimate country. America's going to go, no. These terms are completely unacceptable. The Russians will go, okay, then we're going to keep sending the weapons to North Korea. And then the United States will go, wait. We can't do it all, but we will limit our support of weapons to only these specific types. And then the Russians will go, okay, that's acceptable. The U.S. will stop supporting certain kinds of weapons to Ukraine, and then Russia won't give any weapons to North Korea at all. That's what I believe they're currently trying to do right now, is create an incident in Korea so that way they can get something that they need out of us as far as Ukraine is concerned. And that's what I'm seeing right now. I don't see that they're trying to really create a whole-on isolated incident in Korea, because wars generally need to be avoided, and the Russians understand that they're already on the back foot in the current war they're in, so they don't want to create another one that they have to go and step into directly in a large way, especially on the other side of the country where there's not really a lot of logistical support. So going off of that, I think it is very clear, in my opinion, that this is more of a diplomatic incident creation that is going on than really a attempt to try and create an all-out war or anything similar like that, or the fact that the Russians can't defend themselves. It's more of a diplomatic bargaining chip. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support, Steve T, and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that makes sense. Because it makes sense to me, may not make sense to others, may not make sense to you, but that is how I'm looking at it. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but that's how I'm viewing it right now, because it looks like they're trying to play a diplomatic game more than an actual full-on create new conflict sort of an approach or game. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you so much once again for support, Steve, and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, I saw earlier, and I had to address this before we move on. I saw someone say that Germany was not a socialist state, and Nazi Germany was not a socialist state. And really quickly, was Nazi Germany a socialist state? Let's see. There we go. So this is a really quick summary. Large segments of the Nazi Party, particularly among the members of the Sturmbataillon, were committed to the party's official socialist, revolutionary, and anti-capitalist positions and expected both a social and economic revolution when the party gained power in 1933. And you could see specific historical examples of that after Nazi Germany took power that clearly show that they were moving towards a socialist aim for the economy. One, the Nazi German government took complete control of all heavy industry in the country, which is usually considered a fairly socialist move. Second off, whenever new things were created, it wasn't created with a concept of class. It was more so created on a concept of a society without class. Volkswagen as a company is a perfect example of that. And the name Volkswagen means people's car, which is a very socialist kind of a concept that something is made for the people more so than a specific class. It's like a one-all be-all car for everyone of every kind. Then another great example would actually be a large German cruise vessel, or really a cruise vessel, called the Wilhelm Gustloff, which became slightly famous, although a lot of people forgot it, because it was actually the most deadly maritime accident at sea, with 7,000 people losing their lives after the Wilhelm Gustloff was torpedoed by a Soviet submarine during, I forgot what the name of the operation was, but they evacuated 2 million Germans out of East Prussia and also the Baltic states during that evacuation operation. But let me show you the ship right here, the Wilhelm Gustloff. And the reason why we know, and this is a great example of why the Nazi German government was socialist, is that this ship had no classes on it. It was a classless ship, which is unheard of during this time in history. Because with the British, you would have first class, second class, and third class. On American cruise ships, you would have, I believe, first class, business class, and then it was standard class, because we didn't go, I believe, with the first, second, and third conventions. That was more of a British thing. And then even before the Germans took power in Germany, the really non-existent German cruise lines that existed at that point, because most of the ships had been taken away from them at the end of World War I, they still had a class-based system for their vessels. But the Wilhelm Gustloff did not. You just got a ticket on board the ship, and every single cabin was the same. It was a classless vessel, which once again is a continuation of a socialist ideology. So yes, Nazi Germany was completely socialist in every single step of the way. And some people will go, no, they were nationalist. But nationalism can exist with socialism. Like, of course, keeping within our no politics rule here and remaining before 1960. But with the rise of Clement Attlee in the United Kingdom after the end of World War II, a very socialist member of the Labour Party, many socialist economic ideas were brought forward in the United Kingdom that actually still exist a little bit to this day. Like the National Health Service is a continuation of Clement Attlee's creation. And also the existence of a lot of nationalized heavy industry in the United Kingdom, which has slowly been, I guess you could say, undone with time, is really a holdover from Clement Attlee's time. But one of the biggest things, one of the most interesting things about Clement Attlee is that it was these things that he did were considered openly socialist. Even at the time, they were considered socialist. In going off of that and seeing that Nazi Germany did the exact same thing, but on an actual national scale, and it was permanent until the collapse of Nazi Germany, it certainly does further the idea that Germany was a socialist country. And also, another thing that was very prevalent during Clement Attlee's time was still a great level of nationalism for the British state. And while he was implementing socialist ideologies, socialist ideology does not clash with nationalism. Nationalism is a concept of being proud of the nation. Socialism is an economic concept. So they can actually exist on two parallel tracks at the exact same time in history, while existing in a socialist economic construction. So I hope that does address that fairly well, at least from a historical lens, because Nazi Germany was nationalist, but it was also socialist as well. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so it's now time to move on to the next one, which goes to Lord Lathos LSA, who puts in a $20 donation. Huge shout out to Lord Lathos for that support. They said, "Greetings, LSA family," and take one from the chat. And thank you very much for the support as well.
And thank you so much for the support, Lord Lathos. And of course, I love to see the LSA in your name. And hello to the LSA family. And hello to you, Lord Lathos. And I hope you've been enjoying the stream tonight. And I hope you've been enjoying hanging out with the LSA fam up here in the live chat. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. And we will make sure to take one from the chat, sponsored by none other than... Just one second, sorry there. I actually almost hiccuped. But sponsored by none other than Lord Lathos LSA. So what we got, Matthew?
And the live chat question, sponsored by Lord Lathos, goes to Howard Turgell, who says, hypothetically, if China uses a nuke on Taiwan, then what's next?
I would say, let's see. Let me go see that question really quickly. Dang man, I don't see it. Can you reread it again?
Look at this. Look at this. Do you see it now?
Let's see. Oh, here we go. Let's see, what's next? I would not know what's next, because I would assume that the only reason they would use a tactical nuclear weapon is most likely because U.S. intervention made it completely impossible to invade the island. So I don't really know. I think there may be some U.S. retaliatory tactical nuclear strikes on Chinese naval forces or possibly ground forces, but I would not really know. That's actually a great question. I don't know what would come next from that because there is no historical precedent or even a good idea of what would happen. That's largely uncharted waters at that point. But with that, I hope that does address that at least the best I can. And thank you once again for sponsoring that live chat, Lord Lathos LSA, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. Before we get on to the next one, I actually saw that Olam Drab said, anyway, you're wrong, Enforcer. Despite a few marketing stunts, the Nazis only marketed initially as socialist. Built National Socialism is defined as fascist corporatism. I would disagree, because and this is kind of getting back into it. With Britain, when Clement Attlee started to implement socialist ideals inside the United Kingdom, the companies still had fairly capitalist-looking large corporation names like British Steel, but nevertheless were completely owned and operated by the state. So it would be a little bit hard to say no, they weren't socialist because Messerschmitt or some other company like that or Porsche still kept their name. Or Kraus Maffei Wegmann, for that matter, still kept their name. I would have to say that that's a bit of a misnomer because the companies were still completely controlled by the state, whether they had any names or not, and whether they had CEOs or not. They still had to report back to the German central government, which is a part of a semi-centrally planned economy that would be a hallmark factor in a socialist system. So Nazi Germany was socialist. It really is in the name of their party, the Nationalist Socialist Democratic Action Party, or something along those lines. It has socialism in the name. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. I really can't move off of that because, I like this isn't supposed to be a flex or anything. This is just saying this to lay out a little bit of experience. I took 4 years of history in college. I have a bachelor's degree in history. And one of the big things that they taught about the modern era is that socialism and, well, really fascism in the form of Nazi Germany was very akin, very close, as a matter of fact, to communism. It wasn't really that many steps away from being a communist-like system. And I'm sure that you'll say, well, yeah, but the communists were different. Yeah, but then even still, think about it. The Soviet Union had major companies like Sukhoi, MiG, just in the aviation sector, and then you had all the other major industries as well, like the Kharkiv tractor factory, which was its own specific company, or its own specific factory. And they did have privatized-looking names, like you're saying. But nevertheless, they were still run and managed really largely by the state, although they had their own factory managers, their own heads of design. They were still a part of a socialist or really a centrally planned economy system, just like Nazi Germany had. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
Me personally, I'm not going to claim to be an expert on it, but from what I'm aware of, there were Nazis that were true socialists. But from what I understand, though, Hitler himself wasn't a huge fan of socialism, even though the party was named that, the National Socialist Party. He was more, I'm not going to say authoritarian, because that's really not an appropriate term, but he was more of a totalitarian, I think is the best way to say it. He wanted to get in there and, take charge of certain companies. Like, for example, Volkswagen was the people's car. However, the underpinning theology behind it was not to create socialism to the point where the state is providing for everybody and everyone's equal. That was not the goal, I don't think. But unfortunately, you're saying that it was socialism as in like a true socialist thing, or it was just some Nazis were socialist?
Well, the Nazi government implemented a socialist economic system in Germany. And you could say, well, it didn't really turn into that. Yeah, but the Soviet Union wasn't really like that in World War II either. I mean, there was certainly a class system that existed in the Soviet Union during that time. You had the central members of the Central Committee. Then you had the Politburo guys who were like the still were in the first class of citizenry. And then from there, you had the factory managers, you had the design bureau heads, you had all of these kinds of people who were in the second class, and then the third class was made up of your average laborers and workers. And they had different kinds of benefits and really outcomes based off of what groups you were in. Like scientists or, for example, factory managers usually ended up getting better apartment buildings or being more favored by the Communist Party. Or members of the Central Committee and the Politburo practically lived like high-class citizens really in any other country. And so while the Soviet Union said, we are a full-on communist country with a socialist economic system that believes in Marxist-Leninism, the reality is that they were very similar in practice to what the Nazi Germans did. So you could really make that argument for really any socialist or communist country, is that they never really were socialist or communist, but that was what they were supposed to be implementing.
Interesting. I was just looking here as I was doing some research while you were talking. There seems to be an ongoing debate, a very good debate, about whether or not the Nazis were actually socialists, were they authoritarian, totalitarian, It seems like really nobody has a clear answer for that, really, to be honest. There's one article here, which I personally don't buy into this. It says the Nazis weren't socialists, they were hyper-capitalist. I don't think that's the case. I don't know who the hell wrote that, but it was written in 2022. I would have to disagree with that right off the bat. They were not hyper-capitalists by any means. That would mean they're more capitalist than the United States. I'm afraid not. But I think there were some Nazis that were truly socialist. But then again, you can be like democratic and also not a true socialist and still have some like underpinnings of socialist ideas without being a true socialist.
Well, really quickly, I have something interesting to note here, because this is a very central thing to what Hitler said in his book, as many of y'all know what the name of it is. But capitalism was viewed by Hitler as a form of power for a certain group of people who ended up meeting the ire of Hitler during the Holocaust. And so that was so the really the fascist or Nazist ideology, whatever you want to call it, it had a very anti-capitalist vein in it. And if you go anti-capitalist, the only direction that you could go in an economic form would be directly to socialism. So it would make a lot of sense that the Nazi government would end up implementing socialist ideals and practices, because in their mind, that's how they keep a certain group of people. You know, if you read Mein Kampf all the way through, they make it to where this would make a lot more. It doesn't make sense, but at least by their logic gate system, it would make a little bit more sense. But that's how they would keep a certain group out of power and making sure that they couldn't control the German people. That's what they looked at it as in their mindset, and that's why they said socialism must be implemented in Germany, because that's the only way we can beat them. And that's how they put it. So they did end up implementing a pretty socialist system, because it wouldn't make any sense for them to go, why, yes, we believe that capitalism is the ire of Germany and it allows a certain group of people to be in power. So we're going to allow them to continue to exist, even become hyper-capitalist, which would even further what we say is a bad thing, and then just end up being pretty much a capitalist country with socialist aesthetics. Which wouldn't really make that much sense on an actual like theoretical level, especially when you actually read Mustache Man's book. You see that it is a very, very kind of a different like thing than what a lot of people would think. It really was a socialist country.
Maybe so. I'll be honest with you, I'm not really sure at this point after reading through all the stuff I've read here. All I know, obviously, is Putin was a dictator, obviously. But at this point, I'm not really sure. Wait, what did I just say?
You said Putin, yeah.
Oh, well, that's true as well. I was like a Bush-style Freudian slip. But yeah, Putin is a dictator, and also Hitler was as well. But at this point, I'm not really sure if they were socialist, if they were authoritarian, totalitarian, or what. At this point, all I know is they were bad. Like all I know is Nazi Germany was bad, and that's about it at this point.
And also, I saw one goofy person go, effing Nazi supporters, because we're going to talk about the differences in between the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany, and talk about why the Nazis weren't that great, and why they were a socialist country, which is a part of why they're not great. And then you're going to try and label us Nazi supporters, because we're going to talk about it. Take your poor intellectual ignorance and go somewhere else. Hot Dog Man would be happy to have you. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one here goes to DS, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, DS, for that support. He said, just because.
Hey! And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, DS. Just because it does help this channel to keep on running another day. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, DS. Thank you for being a longtime viewer as well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Zach G, who puts in a $20 donation, and huge shout out to Zach for that support. He said, hello from New Jersey, and thank you for the great streams and all the hard work that y'all do, and you guys really do an amazing job, and long live the LSA.
And thank you so much for the kind words, Zach G, all the way from New Jersey, a very interesting place in America. Take a look at it, New Jersey. We got Trenton, we got Newark, we got Hoboken. We got that North Bergen up in here. Anyone from North Bergen? Shout out if you're from North Bergen. And also, we got the famous Atlantic City. Boom, baby, right there. Right there, Atlantic City, baby. Boom!
But the city of Atlantic! Oh!
Oh, dude, I feel like David Larry would live in Atlantic City for no reason. I'm like, dude, that would be a very David Larry place. But beyond that, I gotta
Who's
say,
David Larry?
Larry David.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoops. Hey, man, I'm not good with names. What the hell? What are you giving me all this smoke for? But
Oh, I
anyways,
will be fair though. David and Larry, they're both really first names. Like neither one of those are really a last name. I've never really heard anybody with the last name Larry or the last name David, except for Larry David.
man, I gotta tell you, man, that would be like saying, let's see, that'd be like saying Ben and Jerry, or calling your son Ben Jerry. It's like, dude, it's like you screwed that kid over. Like everyone's just gonna call him whatever. Like he's not even gonna know what he's really called. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you so much for enjoying our streams, Zach G, and thank you so much for saying that we do an amazing job. We try our best, I assure you, and I thank you once again for supporting this channel and helping to keep on running. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to N and G, who puts in a $12 donation. And huge shout out for that support. They said, love from the Netherlands, and keep spreading the facts.
And we will keep spreading them facts, NG. And I got to thank you so much once again for being one of our viewers from the Netherlands, watching at such an early hour of the morning. It is crazy to think that folks like you get up at like 4 and 3 in the morning to watch this stream, as that's usually when I go to bed at night here in America. But I'm still more than happy to have y'all here with us live. It's incredible to know that y'all have that kind of commitment to this stream. And I thank you so much for enjoying this channel enough to support it, to help it to keep on running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to AMX 10 Speedy Bang Bang, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, AMX 10, for that support as always. They said Putin receives the news, deaths by 1,000 cuts every day from his advisors about drone attacks, but it's double torture because they're asking him how to resolve each one while Putin stares blankly.
And I would agree with you right there. I have to say, that probably is what it looks like in the central control. Or better yet, honestly, I think Putin is so delusional. He sits there with a smugness and goes, there is no drone attacks happening in Russia. Because he does that stupid crap where he'll sit there and go, we will nuke everyone and we will kill the American pigs. And then they'll go, wait a minute, did you just threaten America? Oh, the hell said that? What, are you a clown? Are you a clown or are you a news reporter? So I don't know. I mean, it might be that or your version. I feel like it probably would be your version in reality, and he puts on that stupid face in the public. But still, thank you so much once again, AMX 10 Speedy Bang Bang, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for making this channel possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to OPO, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much for that support. They said, I'm in a conflict with 50 pro-Russians right now, all over YouTube. And OPO, you've got some ops. You've got those pro-Russian ops. So I don't know which ones you're talking about, because most of the pro-Russians have been removed from YouTube, to my understanding. But whoever are left, I'm aware of a couple of them, actually. I won't shout them out, though, but y'all know who we're talking about. Terrible people, insane people,
Hot dog,
even.
man.
So, oh, yes, there's one right there. I almost forgot about him, but I agree. But, Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, that's quite a list. We actually are at war with tons of pro-Russians every single day. And I would have to say that, my goodness gracious, it's a horrendous thing. We actually get that many bots in here every night that we have to end up banning. And so I completely understand that kind of a deal. It is a constant struggle. Some may even say that it's my struggle. But beyond that, it's like, but beyond that, I gotta say, thank you so much for the support and sharing that with us, because I completely understand that. And funnily enough, man, they didn't get rid of a lot of the pro-Russians. Actually, a lot of them have come back or reappeared on YouTube, and they just say what they want, and YouTube doesn't really do much to them.
Oh, that's somewhat interesting. I'll be honest with you, though. Here's my thoughts on it. I obviously strongly disagree with the pro-Russians, but at the same time, I've always sort of been like, should they totally be removed off the platform? Because does that work counterintuitive to the cause? Because when you start removing people from places, the people who are unaware and uninformed of the entire situation between Russia and Ukraine might view that as maybe the Russians are being censored because maybe they're telling the truth. And if they're left to be able to be heard, then a rational person, assuming they're rational and they're listening and appropriately absorbing the information, could make up their mind and realize the Russians are in the wrong and the Ukrainians are in the right. But that's just something that's a long, long debate about free speech. And of course, YouTube is a private company. They can do what they want. They obviously are free to do whatever they want. They've done it. But it's just an interesting debate. But Enforcer, what do you think? What do you think about this whole thing?
I would have to say that in my opinion, I'm not really now. I will say this: as far as our channel runs, it's a pro-Ukraine, pro-Western channel. So we do have our inherent kind of like guidelines that we work with here on this channel. So if you come in here and you're a pro-Russian or you're anti-American or something along those lines, you will end up getting banned because we have a specific kind of a theme that this channel runs with, and that's not open for debate. So if people come in here trying to fight us about it or fight the viewers about that, you're gone. That's just how it works. But in general, I'm not a big fan of the world working on that level or larger forums working like that. Like YouTube as a whole, I would say that I'm generally not a fan of YouTube suppressing different kinds of ideas. Because unlike us, where we're each channel doing a certain thing, YouTube is more of a forum that channels like ours exist in. And it's important for forums, whether they be private or public, to understand that there is a certain level of responsibility that they have to allow Western ideas of free speech, even if you don't really like the speech that is being said, to allow it just out of the sheer principle, the sheer philosophical principle that even speech that is not great should be tolerated, because free speech is a core tenet not only of American values but Western values as a whole, born really out of the Roman Empire and then the United Kingdom later on. And so going off of that, I would have to say I'm not really a big fan of banning pro-Russian channels, and I feel like the pro-Ukraine or really the pro-Western discourse should be so good, and it should have such strong arguments and points that it really can just defeat pro-Russian statements on its face on a fair and level playing field. That's usually how I feel about everything, because if you suppress something, like if you don't allow something, are we saying that those ideas are so strong and so powerful that the only way to combat them is not by debate and not by good, strong points that can tear down their arguments, but by suppressing that speech entirely? Because I believe that's usually what that kind of what kind of message is sent when things like that are repressed. You're saying, while I'm pro-Ukrainian, I'm so scared that my arguments are so weak and would not be able to stand up to scrutiny or common sense that the other side must be suppressed and we cannot even hear them. I don't really like that idea. To be quite honest, I don't like that idea, and I think it would be a lot better for channels like mine to be able to say, we are pro-Ukrainian and pro-Western, and while you're hearing this from the pro-Russians over there, this is what we have to say that makes their points completely useless and void, pretty much. And this is why we're right. I feel like that is a much better way to go about things, and it makes sure to stay with the core tenets here in the West of having values of free speech, even if that speech is not that comfortable to hear or something that we agree with at all, or something that would make even common sense. Free speech isn't free speech just as long as we agree with the speech, or as long as we find it to make sense or not. Free speech exists for the existence of itself. And so that would be my opinion on that. I'm not a fan of pro-Russians, but let them speak and we'll tear down their arguments when they set them up.
Well, one exception that I would make to that is I agree generally, but if there's a person that is being employed by a foreign government, like a foreign agent, for example, and they're trying to portray themselves as a neutral party, but they're being paid by a foreign government to spread a certain narrative, that would be the only exception that I could see where I'm like, yeah, definitely remove those people from wherever they're saying stuff from, because they're not just a person using their right to free speech. That's a person being paid to act as a foreign agent, and they shouldn't be allowed to do that. That's a huge difference right there. And I know some people are going to like get in that argument. I'm personally saying that person should be removed, like no question about it. But the normal person that is not acting on behalf of a foreign government, they should probably be allowed to say what they want. And you know, a lot of people I think get caught in the weeds in arguments. It comes down, like in the Ukraine versus Russia situation, it comes down to a very simple issue. Are countries allowed to invade sovereign countries whenever they feel like it? And the answer to me is obviously no, and that's why Russia's in the wrong. But the propagandists like to get all in the weeds. They like to start going down rabbit holes like, oh, well, Ukraine has this problem in their government, that's why we should take it over. It's like, well, That's their problem to handle. That's Ukraine. They're a sovereign country. You shouldn't be invading sovereign countries. And I think the sort of propagandists really get off on trying to persuade people to take their side is by getting really deep in the weeds on things like that. But still, though, if they're just a normal person speaking their mind, it is what it is. That's free speech. But if it's a foreign agent, another story.
I would agree with that. Also, another thing that I would add is now this is one thing that people might take as a little extreme. I do not believe that countries that are opposing American ideals should be able to have their citizens make statements in open forums here in the United States. Free speech does not apply to foreign citizens of foreign nations. Generally, though, you could make, of course, grand exceptions to that, like citizens of the European Union, of course, would be exceptions to that. Citizens of Canada, citizens of Australia, New Zealand, the Philippines, Japan, South Korea, and so on. There would be exceptions. But countries like China and Russia, I do not believe that Chinese and Russian nationals should be allowed open platforms in America to speak their minds. I'm generally not a fan of that, because that usually delves into, for the large part, state-sponsored propaganda on their ends, which is just an inherently negative force. There's really no way to combat that either, because they'll just keep going. I mean, they don't, like, if they can be as destabilizing as possible, that's what they will do. And we have seen that already when we went on to the, what was it, Matthew, the Narwhal show or whatever, and they had the CCP party member on there talking, and he was acting like he was an American. That was one of the most whack things I've ever seen, because he was like, you know, as a people in America, I believe, and he said it like he was a citizen of America, but as soon as you clicked on his profile, it literally said that he was a member of the Chinese Communist Party. And it's like, you should not be able to talk on any kind of a forum like Twitter, because it's like, it's literally just state-sponsored propaganda from the Chinese that's being targeted to an American audience. And I feel like that kind of speech is not protected because they're not an American citizen, for one. And second, it is from a rival power trying to sway the American public's mindset, which is an inherently dangerous thing. Now, if it comes from an American that just thinks that, and they're not being paid by a foreign government, and they're not a foreign national saying that, they can go at that all day. I mean, they're an American citizen. They can do what they want. But if it's any of the other two criteria where they're either being paid to say that by a foreign government, or they're a foreign national saying that, and they're not a part of the Western sphere and they're a part of a rival nation, I'm not a big fan of that at all. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And also, Agent B7 said, wow, excuse me, now I'm a Russian national. You're saying I should not be granted free speech? Well, do you live in America, and are you an American citizen, or are you living in a Western country? If so, you would be allowed free speech under what I'm saying. But if you are a Russian national living inside the Russian Federation, I would say no. It generally, like, of course there are exceptions. There are great people in the Russian Federation, but generally that would just leave an open gate for the Russian Federation to spew state-sponsored propaganda into the American media circle, which would be, which we can already see is incredibly destructive and far more dangerous than any benefit of allowing Russian citizens to be able to speak in American media forums. That would be my opinion, because at the end of the day, we do have to weigh out the advantages and the disadvantages of doing a certain action, and allowing the Russians a free rein to really enter the American sphere whenever they want, the American forum, and say whatever they want has inherently been negative, in my opinion. Well, there's been great Russians, of course. They're like you, Agent B7, and Slava Free Something. Inherently great Russian folks that are Russian nationals that speak here on this channel. But at the same time, we have to consider that while there are two of y'all, there is probably about 200 Russian bots that are also saying things as well that are coming straight from Russia. And so then the benefits are far outweighed by the negatives of allowing the Russian nationals to have an open forum. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you see where I'm coming from with that. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And with that, we're moving into that next one. And this one goes to Duncan VR, the channel legend, who puts in a $12 donation. And thank you, Duncan, very much for that support. And he has the animal noises. He says, "Baba, ooh, quack. No respect. All men, I'm telling you. All men, I'm telling you." A bad man in Germany, way back in the day, he said, "Guzliken," and "Baba meow woo jack. Woo, no hot dogs allowed. Oink, snort, ba, baba doo ba ba." We have any news on the French in Ukraine, Baba?
The French have been playing it really low key. We haven't heard anything about the instructors or anyone in Ukraine. So I hope that addresses that part fairly well. And thank you so much once again, Duncan VR, and coming in with the traditional animal noises. If we didn't have a night with animal noises, it wouldn't be a night. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. I can see really quickly that there is an actual interesting conversation being had in the chat about what I was saying a moment ago. And I would say, I'm not going to discredit y'all's arguments. They are good arguments, but we are dealing with a world where the internet is able to connect people across great spans quite easily, and foreign state powers are able to have unbelievable, unprecedented access to the American public like it has never been seen before. And the spread of propaganda from that has been not only disastrous to American society, in my opinion, but also quite dangerous as well in the kind of mindsets that it's been spurning, at least to me. And so we have to factor in the idea of free speech, which is a protected right in the First Amendment of the Constitution and is a respected right for citizens of the United States. And then we have to consider the dangers of allowing foreign citizens who are not American citizens of having that kind of forum, specifically from rival powers. And so while I see a lot of y'all coming in with arguments like rights just don't pertain exactly to American citizens, which is an interesting argument by Octavian Timbrosano, I hope you are seeing the kind of tightrope that we're having to walk here. But it is a great point, though. I'm not discrediting the point, but I hope that y'all see the kind of balancing act that has to be done with this sort of a thing. It's not like the ways of the past anymore. We are dealing with unprecedented levels of communication that has never been seen before, and we have to figure out how to protect free speech, but also arise to the challenge of unmitigated and unchallenged foreign state propaganda, which is allowed to flow into America at an unbelievable rate. And so with that,
You know, one thing real quick though that I will say that I don't like. There are some caveats to free speech. Obviously, you can't go around trying to incite a riot and then claim, "Oh, free speech." It's like, no, you can't go into a theater and yell fire. That's a crime. And there are limits to speech. One thing that I've noticed in the modern day, especially like the enforcer is saying with the internet, is people like to form groups and then they'll weaponize those groups and become militant almost. And they'll go around the internet with people, making their free speech statements, and they'll begin attacking, doxing, and also trying to harass people that say things they don't like. I'm not in favor of that. And the more I've seen that throughout basically being on Twitter, Twitter is where it happens a lot. People will go around looking for people they don't like and then get their whole group and horde or basically internet gang of people to come jump on them, dox them, and then try to ruin their life. To me, that is not free speech. That is just straight up harassment. And it seems to be there's a lot of people, a lot of groups doing that these days. And that's not good to me. That'd be like the LSA, this community, being weaponized and then told to go around and harass people individually. That would be wrong. And it seems like a lot of people don't realize that anymore. It's like we can't create internet gangs and start doing this to each other. This is not right. But unfortunately, do you see what I'm saying?
I
know what I'm saying, right?
I see what you're saying, because we've been the victim of some of these crazy people at times before. And yeah, I would say now that doesn't really fall into free speech. That's more of like a harassment thing. And then for us, it goes straight into defamation of various types. But beyond that, I would agree with that completely. But also, I'm seeing so many people continue to bring in interesting points. Agent B7 said people aren't protected from social consequences of free speech, and that's what they would face. But states should not have a hand in that. I would have to be honest. I find that to be a very weird caveat, especially in the modern day, because with the internet, like I'm saying, because the internet is causing a communication revolution that's never been seen before in history. People weaponize the social consequences to an extreme, because back in the day, think about this, back in the day, like say the 1970s, 1980s, we'll go with the 1980s, before the creation of modern internet, or even the 90s, really, for that example. That's probably the most modern that we can get. In the 90s, you could say something kind of silly, or something really stupid, and then you could still go out and go get a job and live a normal life. Nowadays, on the internet, you could do something silly, or you could do something stupid, and then you're pretty much treated like a felon, and no one will hire you, and no one will do anything with you, and you may as well be a social outcast for the rest of your life. That I find to be quite crazy. it's something that I feel like the social consequences of free speech are becoming a little bit too much, in my opinion, no matter what you agree or disagree with, because people can say and do stupid things, of course. But I feel like the internet should not rally together to try and make sure that these people are pretty much treated like felons on some kind of an offender registry or something like that. That seems a little bit too harsh to me. Because yeah, you can sit there and say, I don't like someone, I don't want to associate with them anymore because of what they said. But then you can't sit there and go, why, yes, we're going to hound them every time we figure out they're trying to get a job or live their life and try and ruin every moment of their existence. That goes way too far. Like, you can just disagree with something someone says and just move on. But the internet makes it to where people never move on, and they make sure to constantly try and torture people's existence because they disagree with something they said or did, even sometimes when it's not really that serious. But with that, I hope that does address that well, in my opinion. We're really having this big, interesting discussion on free speech, and I got to tell y'all, I'm actually, I'm seeing a whole bunch of interesting points, not only in agreement with mine, but in opposition. Very, very interesting points that everyone's bringing up, and no one is wrong in this discussion. It's an opinion-based discussion, so it's a very interesting one. But I have to make sure to say this: we have a load of super chats that we got to get to, and we're starting to run out of time. So I'm sadly going to have to move on from this topic, although it's a wildly interesting one. But we will make sure to try and pick it up at some other time. But we have to make sure to get to the super chats and some live chats. So with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Chris, who puts in a $10 donation, and thank you, Chris, for that support. He says, hey guys, we ran out of time last night, so can you look up the MQ-25 Stingray autonomous refueling drone? And this drone is a game changer that allows us and our allies to strike anywhere in the future.
And let's see here. Let's go look at that autonomous refueler. Ooh.
Then we look up the Stingray.
No, we didn't. We looked up that manta ray thing that Northrop Grumman made. This is the Stingray, which is a drone operated aerial refueler. That is cool.
That is pretty cool. That design. Look at those little small wings in that thing. It's like a T-Rex airplane.
Yeah, I mean, this thing is neat. Well, how much fuel can it carry? How big is this thing? Okay, so it's pretty big. I mean, this is about the size of a conventional aircraft. Okay, it's actually really big. It's the size of an F-35. So I'm guessing that they're planning on using this as a carrier-based in-air refueler. I would assume that would be what they're aiming for. And also, look, here's one on the USS George H.W. Bush. So that does confirm what I'm thinking. It's a naval-based in-air refueler. Apparently, 76 of these things are planned, and they're going to be literally used just by the Navy. So really interesting to see. I think this thing is amazing, though. Like, this is great. Think about it.
That is pretty cool. I like the design.
Yeah, you don't even have to have a crew to operate an aircraft to conduct in-air refueling. It's operated by drone. That is incredible. So I would say this is a massive leap in naval air technology, no doubt. And I think that this thing is absolutely incredible. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Chris, and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for letting us look at this thing, because honestly, this got me really excited. I was like, wow, look at that. A drone-operated aerial tanker. That is neat. Now, this thing wouldn't work on the Air Force's scale, but for the Navy, this thing is amazing. And so with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. Thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is going to go to Merck's Lady Bitch, who puts in a $10 donation and says, roses are red, roses are red, violets are blue. Hot Dog Man is crying because his channel is dying. Oh! I will say, screw Russia.
Thank you so much for the support, Merck's Lady Bits, for helping this channel to keep on running. And I got to say, that poem is so true, because I remember at the beginning of this year, because the guy was actually in our radar at the beginning of the year, he said, "Aw, man, you just wait. I'm going to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year." And at that point, he was at 62,000 subscribers, and now he's at 65.2 thousand subscribers. So he's gained about 3,000 subscribers over 6 months. So I have a feeling if he keeps it up, he might hardly reach 70,000 by the end of this year. Huge credit to the guy. The channel is truly dying, and it looks like every time he opens his mouth these days, he's losing about 100 subscribers each time, which I'm always happy to see. We're always elated to see that, and it really makes our day whenever we actually look over at that channel about every month at this point. But still, Thank you so much once again for the support to this channel, helping it to keep on running and throwing in a pretty good joke, because we appreciate a good joke here and there. I cannot say that enough, but still, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And Clausen said, poetic justice. It is. It is. You remember those memes of like the Grim Reaper coming by the doors and taking out the Enforcer channel, stuff like that? Irrelevant channel. The Enforcers are irrelevant. It's like, I'm not a bragging type, but I see that we had like the biggest subscriber gain in channel history, like shortly after he said that. Seems like karma. But anyways, enough said about that. We're moving on to our next one here, which goes to Heatherfish Gibbon LSA, who puts in a $10 donation, and also Plant Lord, who put in a $10 donation as well. Huge shout out to Heather and also Plant Lord for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you both, Heatherfish Gibbon and Plant Lord, for the support. Both of y'all helped this channel to keep on running, and while y'all didn't throw in any comments, the support is massively appreciated and helps to make this channel possible. And so with that, thank you to both of y'all once again for helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope we were able to address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got one here from Scropey, who puts in a 10 and says, let's see. Let's see. Do you know who this is that this super chat's referring to, by the way, Enforcer? Also,
Yes.
thank you for the support, by the way.
Yes, Jan Zizka, who was a commander during the Hussite Wars. And let me go pull him up. And the Hussite Wars sounds like something made up where you're fighting that hussy. Ooh, get him! But actually, it was a it was a real war. Like, it was an actual war fought in between Proto-Protestants and Catholics within the area of the modern Czech Republic. And this guy was cool, because if I'm remembering correctly, he's the man responsible for Wagenburg, which is Wagon War, and it was a really cool concept. Let me see if it actually mentions anything about Wagenburg. I think it should. Oh, dang. Come on. Oh, come on. You've got to be kidding me. This is bull. This is bull. Okay, hang on. Oh, wait. He was actually the commander against, let's see. He was the commander against the Hussites. Interesting, because the Wagen... Wait a minute, hang on. The Hussite... let's see. Oh, wait a minute, here we go! A handgunner on an open field armed with only a single-shot weapon and without a bayonet was no match for a charging knight or a horse. However, from behind a castle wall or from within the enclosure of the Wagenburg, masked and disciplined gunmen could use the handgun to its great potential. From his experiences at the Battle of Grunwald, Zizka knew exactly how his enemies would attack and found new ways to defeat numerically superior forces to his own. Now, this is something that was really cool, is Wagenburg, which Zizka did come up with. Wagenburg was where they would mass a whole bunch of wagons. This is an early illustration of it. But these are wagons, and the actual gunners, the handgunmen, would get inside of the wagons. They would set them up in a circle, and they would have munitions stored in the center of the circle, and these guys would fire out of the wagons at enemy forces. So it was pretty much like a small little castle made out of wagons, which is where it gets its name from. Wagenburg, in German, actually means wagon castle. And that's what the tactic was. It was an incredibly cool one, and I would actually have to say that's not a bad one, Scropey. Jan Zizka is actually a pretty influential military tactician. If I had to go for someone from the early gun period, the pike and shot period, because I would say that this is kind of like the prototypical, well, not really. Well, yeah, it kind of is. If we want to go with the prototypical beginning of the pike and shot era, because this is kind of it, I would also say that Maurice of Orange was also a very influential leader during this time. He was actually the guy responsible for the creation of the modern-day Netherlands. Maurice of Orange was a very, very influential leader as well, along with Gustavus Adolphus. He was a great one as well. He actually came up with the line formation and really was the creator of the prototypical line battle kind of a concept. But I would agree with you. Jan Zizka is an incredible commander, certainly top tier during the pike and shot era, if we wanted to call that a part of the pike and shot era. And so with that, or really the high middle ages, that would be a better description of that. But I still say that the high middle ages is kind of getting towards the pike and shot era. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Chris once again, and huge shout out to Chris for that $10 super chat. And he says, if you guys have ever seen the 2003 shock and awe footage inside of Baghdad, you should watch it. It was the most dominating war footage ever seen, and Putin should watch it and quit before it gets worse.
And I would say I have seen it, and it was pretty impressive, no lie. And I think that Putin should watch it because I think it would encourage him not to go to war, because wars would not end up well for Russia. It would end up going nuclear, and that's a lose in my book. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who helped make this channel possible and help us to keep this thing running. And with that, also Matthew, I think we accidentally had an incident of friendly fire there a moment ago. Just pointing that one out.
That's not the Russian flag, is it?
No, that is the Dutch flag, Matthew.
Okay, I missaw it then.
Okay, I was about to be like, why are we banning?
Oh, that's the Dutch flag, Matthew. It's like, man, I was just like glancing at it.
but he's been here forever. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for support, Chris, and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this channel possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Now, there's a bot for certain right there. He said, "You're full of shite," and he had to go. There he went. Bye-bye. But anyways, we're moving on to our next one here, which goes to Martio Adias, who puts in a $10 donation. And huge shout out to you, Martio, for that support. And no comment to address, but Enforcer, what say you?
And I would have to say thank you so much, Martio, for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. You didn't throw in a comment, but the support helps us to keep this channel running and helps it to keep on rolling. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here, right now. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And Matthew, I wouldn't mistake you. I wouldn't discredit you too much for getting the Dutch flag wrong. There was actually a very interesting diplomatic story that happened with the Turks, where they actually ended up beating a whole bunch of, I think it was Russian football supporters, because they mistook the Dutch flag for the Russian flag, if I'm remembering that story correctly. So you're not out of line doing something like that. It has happened before on much larger scale. But with that, thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Scott Haskins, who puts in a 10. And huge shout out to you, Scott, for that support. He said, "The current pace, range, and ferocity of Ukraine's petroleum liberation operation across Russia is insane. And this has to be the best ROI at this stage in the war, given its attritional nature." And thoughts?
I would certainly agree with that. I believe that's why the Ukrainians have been focusing so heavily on it, because it is such a great return on investment. You spend maybe a few $1,000,000 over the course of half a year, and then you end up causing hundreds of millions, if not billions or tens of billions of dollars of damage to the Russian Federation. So I would say certainly this is a massive return on investment. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to a channel legend. It's Chase Maddie, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Chase Maddie, for that support. Welcome back. He says, Sweden to donate all of its PBV 302s to Ukraine, and it seems like an interesting APC. And any thoughts on this?
Yeah, it is an interesting APC. Have you ever seen one, Matthew?
I have not.
Dude, they're whack. Look at that thing. It's like, I don't know what that is. It's weird.
Man, it's okay.
It's all right. It's odd though. Like, I don't really know how to explain these things. By the way, they were put into service in, let's see, when were they put into service? 1966 up to 2014. So they've been in service for quite a while. All of them will be donated to Ukraine, around 200 of them that are left. Here's an early variant of the thing. Oh man, they're so freaking weird. I mean, it's not bad. It's an APC. It does its job. It's just a smaller sized APC, but it's not the worst. I mean, it could be worse than this thing. So I would say any support is better than no support, and at least Ukraine is getting 200 more armored personnel carriers, which does count for something. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, because my thoughts on these kinds of boxy APCs, they're really outdated in modern war. The infantry fighting vehicle is the way to go. But if you can't get endless infantry fighting vehicles like Bradleys or Warriors or Martyrs, which are really more of an APC, or Pumas for that matter, which are the modern German IFV, then these are the next best thing. So they're not that bad. It's just, they're all right. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you so much once again for support, Chase Maddie, and welcome back. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Scott Haskins. And did we already call that one off? We already called off Scott Haskins. So the range, pace, and ferocity of Ukraine's petroleum liberation.
Yes,
we already called that one off. But huge shout out to you, Scott, once again for that support. And anyways, oh, by the way, folks, the exhaustion, I have to say, I said earlier I don't complain on the stream, but tonight I'm going to complain a little bit. The exhaustion is catching up to me, and right now I am feeling so out of it, but I am trudging along. And let's see here. We have 20 super chats left. Man, what the hell?
I know.
How did it get to be this many?
I think we'll have to instate the right of cutoff.
The right of cutoff, man. It is your right.
And I will have to exercise the right tonight. And so with that, we are going to be officially stating a super chat cutoff for the night. We have to thank you all.
Man, it's so wrong, but it's so right.
It has to be right tonight, man, because we're going to die of sleep deprivation at this point. But we thank you all so much for the unbelievable and incredible support that y'all have shown to this channel tonight. Y'all help it to keep on running and help it to be possible. But of course, at the exact same time, we do not want to make sure to short y'all and have y'all support the channel and not be able to address y'all super chats and thank y'all individually for helping to keep this channel running. And so for that reason, from this point forward, we are going to be instilling a super chat cutoff. That means if a super chat is put in beyond this point on air, we will not be able to address that super chat. And we want y'all to know that and be aware of that. So that way, if you throw in a super chat and it is not addressed beyond this point in the stream, you will know it's because there is a super chat cut off. If you do enjoy this channel and would like to support it, you can come back tomorrow because we are on the stream 6 days a week, and you can support the channel then, and then we'll be able to recognize you and read you off. But tonight we will not be able to do that beyond this point. We are going to be addressing the remaining 19 super chats we have left, and then we're going to be moving on into a very limited number of live chats due to time constraints tonight, and then we're going to be rounding out tonight's stream. But we do thank all of y'all so much once again for y'all's unbelievable support to this channel and enjoying it so much and supporting the channel so much that we actually have to tell y'all to stop supporting, at least for tonight. But we thank y'all greatly once again. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And I'll see folks in that chat saying, poor Enforcer Matt, poor Odo. But I'll tell you what, it's been a long time since I've only gotten about 3 hours of sleep. And I recall the horrors of law school, only getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep per night, every night for months. And it's bringing back those memories, terrible memories. But anyways, we won't have this problem again with the sleep for a long time, hopefully. But this one goes to Ben Ite, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you, Ben, for that support as well. He said, good evening, men. And tell us, how fast will the U.S. intervene to a North Korea-South Korea war?
I'm going to make a very quick statement of opinion. I believe it will be almost instantaneous within the first 24 hours of conflict. Matthew, what do you think?
How fast would we intervene in a North Korea-South Korean war? I would say it would be pretty rapid. Probably within the first week of something breaking out, we'd probably intervene. But once again, don't get confused with the conversation we had the other night about whether or not the U.S. was apt to go back to Korea. Just keep in mind that we may not be wild about going back, but we would go back if needed. And if something actually broke out, we would end up having to go back. We'd be forced to. So I think it'd be pretty quick.
And so with that, I hope we both address that the best we can. And thank you for the support, Ben, and helping this channel to keep on running and helping it to be possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Little Jam. I can't say the middle part right there. It's a little sketchy. But thank you very much, Little Jam, for that $10 support. And he said, hey, Enforcer, and hello, Enforcer Matt. And another great stream tonight. And thank you, Little Jam. They said, did you hear about our brothers and sisters, Sweden, approving the U.S. defense deal? And that's great news for the Baltic states. And thoughts?
I would say I haven't really heard much about it, but I have heard about the general deal, and it's great to know that the Swedes were on board. They're an amazing country with an amazing defense industry, and it's good to know that such a powerful and really military industrially complex country is able to join that sort of a deal. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support, Little Jam, and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you so much for the kind words and enjoying the stream tonight. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Sergey, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Sergey, for that support. He said, let's see here. He He said, socialism is evil. This is Sergey. He said, socialism is evil. Check the full name of the Mustache Mound Party, despite everyone remembers it as the Nazi Party. Its official name was the National Socialist German Workers' Party. They were socialists.
Oh yeah, it was the National Socialist let's see, Deutsche Arbeiter Party. Yeah, that was the name of it. And that is correct. Yes, you are absolutely correct with that, Sergey. And I would agree, socialism and communism are incredibly evil. Although people think they're generally mundane, they can end up being incredibly evil and used as a means to steal power. I would say though, I'll make an argument though, socialism isn't evil, but evil people do use socialism quite often to seize power at the expense of the common citizen, and that is something that has to be kept in mind at all points. But I would have to say, with things like Clement Attlee though, who did implement a lot of socialist policies in the UK, while some of them ended up sucking terribly, like British Rail, which I think everyone in Britain could say sucked really badly, although at this point I'm also hearing that privatized rail is apparently getting really bad too with the amount of price gouging they're doing, because they end up kind of having monopolies within their region. It wasn't with evil intent, and it didn't really end up being an evil. It was just kind of through government incompetence in some instances that some of the programs ended up just going awfully. So I wouldn't say that socialism is evil. I would say that evil people have abused socialism to gain power, and that's what makes socialism a very questionable or inherently evil thing. And really, no one even has to think of socialism unless if your country is in the throes of raw economic despair, and extreme economic action must be taken to reverse the incredibly bad situation that the country has gotten in. Then socialism kind of comes onto the table, but it's such an extreme economic principle or an economic model, it just doesn't really pop up on a normal equation. Capitalism is the way to go, unless if things have gone incredibly bad, and then you're looking down all kinds of different economic routes to figure out how to fix it, and only then is socialism one. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Shady Haze Gaming, who puts in a 10 and says, this has become my #1 source for news on the war, and thanks for all the hard work you guys do researching and reporting the facts. And keep it up, fellows. And huge shout out to Shady Haze Gaming for that support. That is very kind words as well, and we do greatly appreciate it. And Enforcer, what say you?
And we do greatly appreciate it. We do. And I gotta thank you so much for the support, Shady Haze Gaming, and thank you so much once again for wanting us to keep it up in all of the kind words as well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Uncovered Cube, who put in a 5, and also Nick LSA, he put in a 5 as well, and no comments good for us. But huge shout out to the both of you for that support. We appreciate both of yous, and it's of course very much appreciated. And our next one here is going to go to Rob Wilkes, who puts in a 5, and says, you once said that Russia had no right to tell Ukraine it couldn't trade with the EU, yet 2 days ago you said we should not let Ukraine trade with China. Hypocrisy?
Rob, that's just an interesting question. Are you trying to put me on the spot? I'm just kidding with you, Rob. I understand what your question is. And it would sound as though, like, it is hypocrisy. But it is deliberate hypocrisy, actually, Rob. You see, the world of geopolitics is one that's not supposed to be weighed fairly. We are supposed to be unfair in our implementation of what we want, and unfair in the persecution of what other countries want that would be at our expense. So yes, it is wrong for the Russians to tell Ukraine that they can't trade with the EU because we're the Western world and we want Ukraine to trade with us. But it is wrong for Ukraine to trade with China because that is against their interests and we do not want them doing that. So yes, it is hypocritical. But it's hypocritical with purpose. It's not hypocritical without any form of guidance. And that is something that a lot of people are like, well, that doesn't seem right. Hypocrisy is wrong. And hypocrisy is generally wrong when you're talking about a moralistic approach to things. But with governmental issues like this, we aren't talking about something that necessarily has to do with whether something is right or wrong, or hypocritical or not. We're talking about something that is beneficial to us and detrimental to our foes. And so we obviously begin to become hypocritical in that sort of an equation. So yes, it is hypocritical, but it is hypocritical with purpose. I hope that is the best way I can explain that, Rob. But you did call it out, and that is correct. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to CK Bold, the channel legend, who
Yeah.
puts in a 5, the regular, and says, take a live chat question. And we shall. This live chat is going to go to O-Tubes, who says, do you think the U.S. will be spread too thin if all these wars kick off, I reckon? And what do you think?
I don't think the U.S. would be spread too thin. We would most likely switch over to a war economy, which would support wars in really every corner of the globe. But it certainly would be a very strenuous, costly, and long war, much like World War II was. And hopefully it would end quickly, because if it came to a complete resolution, like total victory in World War II, nuclear weapons would start to fly, because there is no total victory anymore in a nuclear world, unless if you want to face complete destruction and complete defeat yourself. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I just saw that Hector Diaz, Matthew, apparently on my statement of, yes, it's hypocritical, but it's hypocritical with purpose, they said, base! And I was like, all right, fair enough. Maybe based, maybe not, I don't know, but if you want to call it based, you can call it based. I appreciate that. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang once again, and they put in a 5 and said, imagine if Kim Jong-ass had given Putin a drone sounding lawnmower as a gift.
And Putin would have been like, oh my god, you could kill me. Dude, that would have ended the defensive pact right there. He would have ripped it up. He would have been like, screw you. But yeah, I would say that wouldn't have done Bowsed too well, Randy. Not well at all. Actually, AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang. Sorry. I actually saw that Matthew clicked on the next one, and I read that one. Sorry. But with that, thank you so much once again for support.
You see me click around like a maniac. You're like clicking around everywhere.
Yeah, I saw you clicking around. But with that, thank you so much once again, AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, for the support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. With that, we are on to the next one.
And you know what Kim Jong-un actually gave Putin as a gift? Putin gave Kim Jong-un the Aurus, that horrible-looking Russian limousine.
Yeah.
But you know what Kim Jong-un gave Putin?
What?
He gave him 2 dogs.
What kind?
Two white fur dogs. I don't really know what the dogs were, but they look good. I mean, they look like good dogs. I don't know how they came from North Korea, but they came from there.
Yeah, I thought they were against the whole idea of owning a pet because that was bourgeoisie.
Oh, it's okay if Kim does it. You know,
that's true.
Do not what you see, you know?
He is the God Emperor, after all. But with that, I hope that
he can have the Twinkies. He can have the Twinkies, but you can't have the Twinkies. Could you imagine, after all the heresy we've said against North Korea at this point, if they could get their hands on us, they would be making us choke on Twinkies at this point. They'd be like, eat this Twinkie, eat another one, have another Twinkie. They would be putting us in the ringer.
Dude, they'd shove an egg beater up my nose and scramble my brain, dude. Like, they would not let us go. Well, dude, we probably are on a list in North Korea somewhere. Like, I would put money on that at this point. Because they are very petty folks. Like, they are really petty on a governmental level. We probably are on a list. But with that, I hope we have addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
I mean, the guy was petty enough to go after his family member in the airport and smear doo-doo on his face. So I'm like, if he's able to do that, then he put his uncle in the square and like shot a freaking missile at him or something like that. They're very petty. Yeah, they're very, very petty. Like, I've never heard pettiness to that level. But anyways, our next one here goes to Randy Toaster, who puts in a 5 and says, what can Ukraine do to stop these big glide bombs?
Sadly, there isn't really a lot they can do once they're launched, because they're hard to pick up on a radar. But what you can do is you can try and move air defense systems like the Patriot closer to the border to make sure that that they can never really get in range to drop the bombs. So really stopping the aircraft from ever dropping the bombs in the first place, either by making it impossible for them to get to their target or shooting them down, is really the only way to counter the bomb threat. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much once again for support, Randy. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Philip Fix's LSA, who puts in a 5 and says, okay. How about folks of the Enforcers for an action group? Cult of Matt is for the crazy fan. Hey, watch it. He said LSA is for us all. And long live the LSA. TLSA WND.
The LSA will never die, and I love it. I love to see it. Philip Fixes, but the Cult of Matt isn't for the crazies. It isn't for the crazies.
Hey, watch it.
Hey. It's just for the people who like Matt a little bit. But you know, you can come up with whatever you want. For me, it doesn't matter. I mean, I'll be here every day. It doesn't matter whether there's a well, the cult of the enforcer. I wouldn't really want something to be called a cult. At least for me, Matthew's one kind of just popped up organically, so we had to run with it.
I didn't start it.
Yeah, Matthew didn't start it. It just kind of popped up and grew, and then we had to recognize it because it was the thing. We were not going to crush that. We were just going to accept it. But I would say, folks of the enforcers, and it's not a bad one. But Matthew, Matthew, we ought to come up with something really authoritarian sounding for me, like Guards of the Banner Party, or something like that. Come up with something that sounds absolutely nuts. I'm just kidding. We would not do that, but that would be funny if we did. But still, with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel keep on running full of fixes, and thank you for making this channel a reality. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Adam McLean. He says, if you get enough super chats, will you keep the live stream going as long as it takes to get through them? LSA.
No, no, Adam. We will instill a super chat cutoff if there are too many of them, because we have to sleep. And we also want to make sure that we can address each one. So if we ever reach a point where it's becoming too many of them, like there has been tonight, we just instill a super chat cutoff, meaning we won't read any that are put in beyond a certain point, and the risks beware, pretty much. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. Thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to, let me get rid of this bot. There he goes. This one goes to Wyatt Logan, who puts in a 5 and says, I'm sorry, enforcers. As far as jokes go tonight, I came up empty-handed. Unlike Chris's mom.
Oh, dude, I heard Wyatt Logan. I was like, there's got to be a punchline to that, because I wasn't looking at the spreadsheet yet, and there was. So I was like, oh my goodness, weaponized. But still, I love to hear it, Wyatt Logan. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Octavian Timarasunu, who puts in a 5 and says, just supporting a cause. LSA forever.
Hey, and thank you so much, Octavian Timarasunu, for supporting a cause. And I actually, by the way, since you're still here, I think, your comments on free speech and what should be allowed and not allowed, I actually found that to be a very interesting comment, actually. That was a very thought-provoking one. And I got to thank you for always being here with us and always enjoying this channel and supporting the call, so that way we can make sure that the LSA can keep on running and have interesting conversations like that. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Bruce Lee, who puts in a 2 and says, my 2 cents. And he actually put in $2, but he said my 2 cents. He said, my 2 cents adjusted for inflation.
Oh,
hey, look at that. Keep it up.
That was a pretty good one. I like that one. And still, thank you so much once again for support, Bruce Lee, and helping this channel to keep on running. And I love to hear that you put in your 2 cents. And we will make sure to keep it up. And thank you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Bruce Lee once again. He puts in another 2, adjusted for inflation. He said, for the Slurpee fun, and hello, corgis, LSA.
And hello to the corgis, little Monster will work, and the big baby Shiba. Or as I call him, let's see, Wumpus and Grishak. Matthew has been hearing that a lot lately, because I'll go up to Mr. Corgi and I'll pet him, and I'll go, oh, he's just a little baby Grishak. And I just came up with the name out of nowhere. And then baby Shiba is baby Wumpus. But with that, I still thank you so much once again for support, Bruce Lee, and thank you for supporting the Slurpee Fund as well. We do love a Slurpee every once in a while. Wacky Slosh! That thing bleeding be! But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and moving on to our next super chat, we have one from LSA Master Sergeant Figment, who puts in a 2 and says, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order.
And hit that like button. And I got to thank you so much once again, LSA staff. It's not staff, it's Master Sergeant Figment. Why in the world am I calling you a staff sergeant? Well, you're not a staff sergeant. But still, I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who helped make this thing possible. And please, do hit that like button if you enjoyed the stream tonight. Almost 3,000 of y'all have. How many more will? But still, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Stephen Mosher, who puts in a 2 and says, refueling during FAD is critical.
And I would certainly agree with you on that one. Refueling during in FAD, my mind is absolutely gone. I can't even think of what that abbreviation stands for. But beyond that, I would agree with that. Refueling is critical in air operations. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to our final super chat. And then we're going to be moving on to a unfortunately very small number of live chats. But Matthew, what do we got?
And this one goes to Tim Anderson, and he put in a 1. Huge shout out to Tim. Thank you very much for that support, and no comment to address. But Enforcer, say you.
Me.
Hello.
Hello. So thank you, Tim Anderson, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And like we said, and like we always keep up every single day, whether it be $1 super chat or a $500 super chat, every single one of them is equally appreciated. And we got to thank you so much, Tim Anderson, for finding the channel worthwhile enough to support and help it to keep on running, because you're doing your part like every supporter of the channel does in making sure that we can keep this thing running on a day-to-day basis. And so thank you massively once again. And with that, we are now going to be moving on into the live chats. We're going to be addressing the Morse code decoders of the stream, and then 3 live chats, and rounding out the stream due to the stream now being 3 hours and 40 minutes long. And so what do we got, Matthew?
In the Morse code decoders tonight were Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J., Rumpelstiltskin, and David Millsaps. They said, the Morse tonight says, Russia is pushing the world to the brink for the failures in Ukraine. Keep going. Huh? Long live the LSA.
And that is the sound of money. And y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. And I got to say, thank you all so much once again for getting that right. Y'all got that message dead on the nail again and again, time and time again. The 849th day of the war, dead on the nail. And so with that, thank you all once again for that. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this question right here, I'm looking through here because we have a good amount of good ones, so I'm trying to pick the best ones here. Not to offend anybody if I don't pick yours. That set me up for a disaster right there. But let's see. I guess what I'm going to do random now, because that's going to sound bad if I start picking favorites and stuff. So I'm just going to randomly pick one. I'm doing the clicking. This one goes to Chris, who says, how long can the Russian economy and their military continue with such catastrophic losses?
Most likely till the end of this year or the beginning of next year. We're keeping with that timetable until it gets to that point and they're not collapsing, and then we'll have to revisit it and come up with another time frame. But with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Bruce Lee, who says, do you think China would intervene if Russia and North Korea team up on South Korea?
I think that China would most likely condemn the actions that were going on. I actually think they would, because they are generally for trying to keep the Korean Peninsula stable, because they don't really want to see South Korea go. They actually trade with them a pretty okay bit, and they don't want to see the Korean Peninsula be destabilized, because that's right along their border. So they actually probably would heavily denounce the Russians and North Koreans in their actions, and probably not want them to do anything on the peninsula, in my opinion. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the last person to put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Muskrat82, who says, is it just me or not? And is all this tension going on right now pretty much everywhere around the world? Putin seems to be the common factor between it all. And is there something to it?
In the Middle East, I would say that that's not really Putin. That's more so the Iranian government that's conducting all the tensions down there, kind of separate from the Russians. But if you're talking about what's going on in Asia and Europe, yes, I would say that Putin is behind that. And there is a reoccurring theme there. He is generally trying to create diplomatic incidents to use as bargaining chips about the Ukraine war currently, so that way they can try and get an upper hand on the diplomatic playing field. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream, which is almost marathon length at 3 hours and 41 minutes as I'm saying that right now. I've got to say, though, that we are massively appreciative of all of y'all watching this stream and hopefully getting a lot out of it. We always enjoy covering this news with y'all each and every day. And, of course, we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, thank you all, folks, for another great stream. And yes, I said it. I said folks. And with that, we'll see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern for the nightly war news stream, and also midday as well. Tomorrow is my day for the short war summary, so if there's enough news to cover, there will be a short war video out around 1 or 2 p.m. CST. But with that, we'll see y'all tomorrow. Thank you all for the support and the great stream again tonight. And I'm going to go get some good sleep and try to get my brain working once again. But with that, we'll see you all tomorrow, and good night.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
You